Klubnik lets it go deep, and it is intercepted by the All-American Malachi Starks.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
They're down at 11. Ward able to spin free of Searcy, and then goes to the end zone, and in the back of the end zone, it is Jacoby George. My, oh my, Cam Ward's having himself a day.
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
Here's Fafita. Plenty of time. Throwing, and that's complete. The T-Mac. A house call. Again. It's his third. This one's from 78 yards out.
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
Moss buys a little time. Puts it into traffic. Did he pull that down? Kyron Hudson. Oh my goodness, what a catch.
365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at uniteprivatenetworks.com.
Back on offense. Ashton Jenty. Breaks free. Has a player tracking him down. It's TJ Smith. Can he get to him? Jenty. Touchdown. Get out of town. 75 yards. A new school record. 6 touchdowns today.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
Well, good afternoon, 365 Sports, and don't take the shot of the two-shot yet, but we have something to show you that is from one of our great sponsors, and it's amazing. It is Green Gridiron, and now here's the set with Craig and Paul. Craig to your left, if you don't know, Paul to your right, and then the helmet with our 365 Sports logo. And I love red. I'm a big fan of like red, but I love that kind of whatever gray, matte, and silver. I love that color, love that scheme, and I love that logo, of course, too.
Yeah, it's super exciting. We've been waiting for a couple months. You know, they had, they kind of kept sending me like teases of things that they were going to do for the build, and all these things. Like the visor has like an American flag on it. You probably can't see it if we turn it because the lights will hit right back at it. But the bumpers and everything is custom. And so I put the link in the chat. So there's like the helmets, all you see here, the little mini helmets, they sell those full-size helmets. Or if you want to do a custom helmet, they can do that for you. And they'll even make a YouTube video and pump up your company for you, which there's I think it goes tomorrow. It'll go live, and we'll be able to see how they made our helmet.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
It is absolutely beautiful. So there we are with the 365 helmet, and I love that color scheme. Somebody, what was it, chrome? It's got a little bit of that in it too. So thank you again to what Green Gridiron has done for us, and all the cool little things that are sent our way. Yesterday or 2 days ago, Emery and I, we're the ones that play golf, had a couple of 3-packs, Paul, of golf balls that were sent our way too.
Yeah, from Thick Golf, they're a new sponsor of ours as well. So they sent us over some golf balls, and curious to see how those work out for you.
All right. So, by the way, you still have time. The Texas Beef House College Football Pick'em contest that Scotty B won last week. You can get on that. The line we'll have that up and put that in there where you can jump in. I already made my picks. I think last week we were 5-5. Paul was 7-3. Craig, you and I were like 5-5, 6-4. But it's time. So please get your picks in now. Paxton said he's putting his in at this particular time. And by the way, that helmet matches Smokey's golf shirt. How did that happen?
That was just luck of the draw.
I didn't know. I did not know. So you're exactly right. Thank you to Miss McReynolds for sending us that chat room. Great to see you, and also everybody else who was involved. So we have a lot of guests today. Taylor McHargue, Stephenson Sylvester, who's the color analyst for Utah, Rod Babers, Jeff Traylor, Zach Gelb, our Big 12 pod today, and then the top 5. Michigan is about to host highly ranked inside, of course, the top 10. Heck, they're number 3 or 4. Texas is about to come into town. And this will be since 1970, Michigan has hosted 12 teams inside the top 10 inside at Ann Arbor. They are 7-5. The last time a team came into town, they beat the hell out of Notre Dame in 2019. In the year before that was 97. They used to have a pretty good, of course, series with Colorado. They beat Colorado in 1997, 27-3. The Big House hosting Texas, and Michigan hosting a top 10 team. This is non-conference outside of the Big Ten for the 13th time since 1970.
When you threw that out there on the thing, I hadn't seen it about their top 10. I had seen a stat about Bill Self against top 10 teams compared to the other coaches in college basketball, and he is by far better than all of them when it comes to playing against ranked teams. So I was expecting something like that, but 7-5 tracks, especially given recently how Michigan was before, in the early Harbaugh years or the pre-Harbaugh era, the between Carr and Harbaugh era, which is what Michigan's like to call the dark times.
Yeah, I mean, Texas is just number 3. They're not 3 or 4. They're number 3 in both polls, and they are, moving up because of the fact that some teams like Oregon did not look as good. That particular was the one that they jumped over. Did not look as good in the opening week, so they got dinged for that and dropped a few spots. So, yeah, this is a number 3. Texas Longhorns rolling in for a top 10 matchup, and I at the beginning of the week was very pessimistic about the chances of Michigan just overreacting a bit to what we saw on Saturday, but it ought to be a hell of a game. I mean, that Michigan defense is really, really good, and that Texas offense looks like it's going to be a lot of fun this year with Quinn Ewers having a big returning offensive line and a lot of weapons in the wide receiver core. I think their running backs are still a question mark as far as what they're actually capable of doing. And we'll know how good they are because Michigan will show that. And even if they're pretty good, Michigan might make them not look that good because that defense is so solid. So this will be a great matchup just based on the logos, based on the atmosphere, but also I think based on the back and forth with Steve Sarkisian and his staff and Sharon Moore and his staff. And I guess the thing that really pinged Michigan for me last week was the quarterback situation, just the offense, not as smooth of a start as you were expecting or even a transition from last year. And J.J. McCarthy just feels like things are still being sorted out over there. So that hurts their chances, in my opinion, but that defense will give them a chance. So, yeah, that ought to be a great game. And being at home, you would think that definitely puts a couple points on the board for Michigan. If it's enough to overcome what Texas is able to do, that's why we watch the games and why they play the games. But I'm very much looking forward to that one.
Well, the number 4, this is the Athletic wrote this story on Monday before the rankings came out. 4 and now 3, as you mentioned, AP and also the coaches poll. Texas is also the first non-Big Ten team ranked in the AP top 5 to visit Michigan Stadium since Florida State in 91. So we gave you this. They're 7-5 since 1970, non-conference games top 10, 7-5. Most of those games would have been against Notre Dame, couple of Miami, couple of times Colorado, and even other schools involved. In 91, Florida State beat Michigan there 51-31. And boy, would they love to still have some of those points to use this year.
Yeah, I would love it. I would. If Casey Weldon was still the quarterback like he was in 1991, that'd be great. Casey Weldon lost the Heisman Trophy that year, by the way, to Desmond Howard, who his team beat their team by 20 points at their place. Not saying that we should have another CW
We
Heisman
don't want to
Trophy
hear
winner,
any bitching from Florida State side.
But I'm just saying
We're done.
that I'm just
You
saying,
Paul?
20 points at
Paul,
home.
I thought you buried that earlier today.
20 points at home.
Okay.
So I'm saying. I'm talking about 1991, not 2020. Gosh,
all right, so there we are with that. Another Big Ten team, by the way, Illinois hosting Kansas. This is the first sellout for the Illini since 2016. Sell out their first game. First time they've sold out their first game since 2016. How about that with KU? Imagine if you wrote that, as even Michael Swain mentioned 5 years ago. People would not believe. Why would they sell out for that game?
It was probably would have been one of the cheapest tickets in all of sports. I'm curious to see how that game goes. I think Kansas should win, but I haven't seen enough of Illinois and what they can be with Brett Bielema this year. And you know they're going to be at least fundamentally sound on defense because that's what Brett Bielema does. I think Kansas should win it, but I don't think they can, especially with a full house there, go in and take them lightly.
Well, I mean, we're going to talk about these games later, so I just think that's good for Illinois to have done that. I mean, that's cool. That brings extra atmosphere to the game, and I don't really keep track of sellouts, but the fact that that's their first in a while is a cool deal, and that's
first for the home opener. Yeah.
So yeah, whatever that niche thing. Yeah, home opener, first sellout in a while. That's great. That's good. That's a nice team rolling in. So you'd hope to have your fans packing that joint, and I'm sure there'll be a few KU fans there as well. So that'll be great.
A little gamesmanship. Eastern Kentucky is playing Western Kentucky. Western Kentucky back in maybe in the summer announced their promotions and themes for the home games for the 2024 season. And they also said the home opener this weekend would be a whiteout. Every year, their home opener would be a whiteout. We wear white helmets and uniforms and pants and et cetera. However, Eastern Kentucky informed us on Tuesday of this week that they would be exercising their right as the visiting team to wear white uniforms, thus forcing us to wear red jerseys on Saturday. Per NCAA rules, both teams must agree to a uniform switch. We were hoping that Eastern Kentucky would agree, but that's not the case, as many of the opponents in the past have done. So Western Kentucky, I saw Brett McMurphy, Western Kentucky by 1 billion. Oh,
yeah, I think so. And look, that Hilltopper is going to get after them. I don't know what he is, where he's from, other than the top of the hill, what kind of dimension he comes from. But, yeah, that's sometimes that may be a button you don't want to push. Like, I get the gamesmanship from Eastern Kentucky, but that's sometimes you bring on things that are unnecessary, right? You've added extra spice to this. Maybe you didn't need to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think it's just being petty and gamesmanship, like you said, but mostly being petty. And that's part of college football's fabric, is to be petty over certain things and, ruffle the feathers of your opponent or try to get in their head a little bit. So it seems like that's a pretty good way to do it, given it's made national headlines and everybody's talking about a game they otherwise would not be talking about outside of Eastern and Western Kentucky. So, they guess rattled the cage a little bit. We'll see if they, pissed off the tiger inside of it or not. But certainly, another fun example of just kind of the pettiness and the rivalries and just the quirkiness of college football.
All right, Earl Campbell, Tyler Rose Award released their opening week National Player of the Week Ashton Gente from Boise State, who's a friend of the show. He had that monster game, record-breaking game in their opening win, 267 yards and also 6 touchdowns in a shootout against Georgia Southern. Craig, of course, I mean this when I say this, that you were early on the Ashton Gente, hype train. And it's not just hype, it's real. He's that good, and he's getting that kind of attention. I saw RG3 put out his Heisman Trophy frontrunners, a list out that he put out today, and he had Ashton Gente, then Teteroa McMillan, Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders at 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Yeah, pretty self-explanatory if you look at the game that he had last week. Problem for Boise is I don't know how much of a defense that they have, but they do have Ashton Gente, so he'll give him a chance in most weeks. And Gente's a guy who's just a lot of fun to watch, and as a threat out of the backfield, not only running the ball but catching the ball as well. Just a really, really solid, dynamic player, and had a lot of fun watching him and following him last year. Had a terrific season, was conference player of the year and all that. And I think he is an early Heisman guy. The problem is that he plays for Boise. So he's going to have to be great to even get considered for the list. And they play Oregon this week. So I would think Oregon after last week's got a little proving to do. And regardless, they're a really good team. So I don't know what's in store for Gente in terms of yardage this week or touchdowns, but he'll be a big part of whatever Boise does because he is their main guy. And I think they're going to have to figure out some things defensively to make that game against Oregon as competitive as it can be, but he'll give them a fighting chance as he does in every game, and I'm glad that a lot of people are starting to take notice and talk about him.
I thought during Sunday night's game between LSU and also USC that one of the better players for LSU was their running back in John Emery, who's been through injuries. When he came on the field, it seemed like he gave them a nice little spark. He is out for the year. He has torn his ACL. Garrett sent that to me earlier today. Garrett, not good news for your Tigers.
No, it's not. I mean, he was when you look now, LSU has 3 scholarship running backs that they're going to have to work with. Granted, you get Nichols this week, but after that, you kind of jump into SEC play. And right now, it's Josh Williams who really hasn't done that much. And then you have Caleb Jackson out there who in camp, he's shown flashes that he could be that guy that's explosive and run people over, kind of Leonard Fournette-esque. And then you have Caden Durham, the freshman that's coming out of Duncanville, but he hasn't seen any reps. Trey Holly is still suspended. So it's a really big blow for LSU when really Emory was the only hope they had of having success on the ground last week against USC.
10 carries, 61 yards, had a catch as well for 10. I just thought he brought a little something to that run game. Not like some kind of All-American, but it seemed like he gave him a little lift, but he's out for the year.
Yeah, they need help at running back. Garrett, what did you say? They used to have great running backs and no quarterback, and now that's reversed?
Though they had great running backs and no quarterback play, and the secondary was elite. And then now it's like you have no good secondary play, no good running back play, but you have elite quarterback and receiver play. It's just crazy how that shifted.
Hey, they had a lot of success because they had great people at all those positions. But you're right. At times it was more of a workman-like quarterback than Burrow, of course, did his thing, among others, with now what Nussmeier's doing too. Now, this is a note from Cody Kellner. He does kind of an analytics, but I didn't put up the numbers. But so far through, again, just a week and a half, really, 2 weeks, but a week and a half, the SEC, the ACC, and the Big Ten are the only conferences with 2 non-conference wins against Power 5 opponents. The SEC and the Big Ten are the only 2 conferences with a win versus a non-conference opponent that's ranked inside the current AP Top 25, and the SEC is the only conference with no losses outside of the current AP Top 25. These are just some nuggets. Cody, of course, had been on our show many years ago, was one of those that does the data and analytics, but just a note of just a couple of it's too early to really see anything that really matters, but just a couple of notes he sent to me, so I wanted to mention them. I
disagree. I don't think it's too early to see how you fare against other conferences, which is what you're referring to there. So I just had an entire article today on Sikkim365.com about the weekend the Big 12 has. They're playing
I was going to bring that up.
3 Big 10 teams and 3 ACC teams and 2 SEC teams, and that's it's not too early to start making some determinations based off you playing the Arkansas and the Illinois and those teams of the world. You're not playing Alabama and Georgia to play the best of the best, but you are playing some teams that you can get into an argument about if you're better than them or your standing in your conference is better than their standing in their conference. I think this is a big weekend. The Big 12 talks so much trash lately, and I don't mean that disparagingly, although sometimes it can kind of get that way. You're kind of like, wait, kind of remember who you are a little bit here. But because of the way the last couple summers have gone, there's a swagger the Big 12 has they've never had before. And there's no OU or Texas kind of pinning them down or making them feel like they've got to remain in their shell, which is not OU and Texas's fault. It's the rest of the league. That's just the dynamics of the way that it was. But now everybody's a little more confident. Everybody's talking a little bit more. Everybody's a little bit more out there than they were before. And they kind of have to be, and they kind of have to be that way together because that's just the history that's what's led to the conference sort of being that way. All of these island of misfit toys who feel disrespected. So if you want to change that perception or you want to like actually be able to talk about the ACC and not some like down the line realignment win, you want to talk about like actually winning. I don't know. I like the stuff on the field, and you did that with TCU and Stanford last week, and you got an opportunity to do that a couple more times this week. And you got an opportunity to tell the ACC like, hey, we're like 4-0 against you guys. And, we're 3-0 against the Big Ten, or we're whatever and whatever versus this conference. So I do think that matters in terms of perception. At the end of the year, it really matters because when you're putting your playoff resumes together and you're going like, well, what was your record against this league? That might come back around and be something that they look at. So I think this is a huge weekend for the Big 12, and it's not too early to look at some of those matchups and say, if you want to talk, then you got to walk the walk.
Craig's article, Big 12 approaches massive non-con weekend inside Stickem365.com, the premium section. So they play Pittsburgh ACC, Arkansas SEC. The Baylor-Utah game's a non-conference game, so that's kind of just a wash. Iowa, Big 10. Also, Illinois, Big 10. Nebraska, Big 10. Oklahoma, SEC. Washington State, Pac-2. And then you have Mississippi State from the SEC. Those are all Power 4, and then the Washington State game where you have a chance to go in and come out of the weekend feeling pretty good about yourself, or at least send a message. Don't like West Virginia blew a tire. They can't afford too many of those, although, again, not many people are going to beat Penn State this year.
No, it is. This is where your measuring stick is. It sucks that you have to do it this way, and this is almost exclusively how they split the hairs. But what other metrics do you have when you try to compare conferences? And the Big 12 and ACC in particular are going to have the hardest problem saying why we deserve more than one team. We should have these two, and we should have these two, and then if this is all messed up with your teams, if it's all kind of lower conference winning percentage, that's going to get thrown back in their face.
If you go to the end of the year and you're comparing to the Big 12 deserve 2 and Oklahoma State lost to lower level Arkansas in the SEC, guess what? That's going to hurt.
Yeah.
You can't lose that game if you expect Oklahoma State to be a contender at the end of the year, or that's the only game you can lose. And because it's going to be Arkansas, who's not going to finish in the top half of the SEC, barring a miracle, really, then that's going to, be a bad mark on your record if you're in Oklahoma State. That's affect you. So you got to win that game, especially when you're the 16th ranked team in the country and you're at home. So you win that game, and I'm sure that the reaction will be, well, that's the lower level SEC team, but it sure as hell beats the alternative of you can't even beat the lowest level SEC team. And not to focus on them because it applies to the Big 10. It applies to the ACC. I mean, who are you talking more trash with right now than the ACC? Well, guess what? TCU beat Stanford at their place. So there's a little feather in your cap. But if you turn around this week and Pitt beats Cincy, and who else is on there? I thought there was a couple more from the ACC this week.
For ACC or SEC?
ACC. Pitt.
Yeah, Pittsburgh's the one that is a game against the ACC.
So, yeah, but if you turn around and like Cincy loses to Pitt, well, then that just makes that a little bit of a wash. No, SMU. That's another game this week. Yeah. That's from the ACC. BYU and SMU. So you had the bragging rights last week. They can go 2-0 against you this week. And then all of a sudden – you're talking all that trash, you're like, scoreboard. So, when it comes to those kind of conversations, like these are the games that matter. And if, somebody wants to try and denigrate it down the road, your buddy, well, yeah, it's not Jordan. Well, who cares? Like, you got to win the games in front of you. And so this is a weekend that I don't want to hear more talk. I want to see them actually go out and win like the majority of these games and be able to get on the other side of it and, be able to point to that later on down the road, because you got to make your own respect if you're them.
All right. So there was something that went viral. Completely agree. You got to win games against the other Power 4 schools, no matter who they are now, what people think of them now, because you never know where they might be in October, November, early December. So there was this deal. A Florida State fan went on Twitter and said he would eat dog stuff in a red Solo cup if Florida State lost to Boston College.
Yes.
And obviously then people have tracked him down. They said, listen, if Osama bin Laden can't hide, neither can you, or Saddam Hussein can't hide, neither can you. So, I mean, there's a lot of people that had fun with this. Well, so now there are people having fun with this. And John Kurtz, who covers K-State, but also the Big 12, K-State loses to Tulane. I will eat Chipotle raspberry bean dip from a Taco Luca MHK with a spoon and post a video of me doing it, which is, by the way, not a bad thing to eat, but you just not like what this other guy decided to do.
Chipotle raspberry bean dip. I've never been to that. I'm very curious as to what that tastes like. So
I'm not. That sounds disgusting. Yeah. I don't like fruit and beans mixed together. It's just not for me. But hey, more power to you if that's what you like. I'm sure it's delicious for those with wider taste buds than I have.
Well, yeah, beans and fruit don't seem like the very good combination. Beans with Mexican food is okay. Now, one more note from Ross Dellinger, and this is that House and settlement. And one of the notes that a lot of different angles of this story. He said that college leaders continue to work to establish what is a new regulatory structure, not the NCAA, to manage and enforce the revenue sharing model. And third parties are now being vetted per historian Yahoo Sports as to who will do that. And of course, the smart ass thing to say is, yeah, take out the person who's not able to do anything or manage anything. And that would be the NCAA.
Well, I mean, I don't know. That's what I said when we said it, is like a novel thought of like, hey, if this organization is, collectively incompetent over and over and over again, maybe you need to change the organization that governs it. And I don't know, like, are there third parties? Like, I wonder how many third parties are out there building to a college sports governance company. I don't know how that all works, but getting rid of the NCAA, if you have something better to replace it with, which given how bad the NCAA has been lately, doesn't seem like it should be as hard as it would have been 20 years ago. Right now, you need something new altogether where it's a completely revamped NCAA or something that's not that at all.
Yeah, I don't really have much to add to that. I think, they're obviously working through a process, and I think, the talk has been out there that the NCAA is probably going to the wayside. So it's not surprising to kind of hear that. I don't think there's, much to report on other than it's starting to get into motion, but it's obviously very interesting.
Yeah. And again, we don't touch on this too much, but when there's something that's brought up, what? Chipotle raspberry black bean dip. Sweet, spicy, most addictive appetizer on the planet. Homemade raspberry chipotle sauce, tangy cream cheese, heart black beans, and gooey Monterey Jack cheese. Served with tortilla chips. That still doesn't seem to be something.
That's what they say it is, though, right? I sent a text to Kurtz, and I think he's on the air right now, so I'll find out what it tastes like from him.
Oh, okay.
I sent a text because I'm curious.
I would think that the black bean dip, that would override the raspberry, but maybe it's kind of
maybe there's just notes of it in there. I don't know. So
okay, all right. So there we are. With that, Garrett Ross runs the mothership. Emery Winter is here as he does what he does to put segments up in various directions, and also already working on 365 Sports Tonight, which is on the local CW tonight at 10:30. So we're going to get to the pod with the Big 12 teams in the 5 o'clock hour. What game this weekend would be in order, like 1 through 3, getting back to the non-conference games, in order, which would be the best wins the Big 12 can come up with? 1, 2, 3, if you want to go a little bit. I know there's 5 or 6 games, but which one would be the best one?
I would say that the 2 games you have against SEC teams would be nice wins, just because it's the SEC, so Mississippi State.
There's 3, Mississippi State, Oklahoma, and Arkansas.
I keep forgetting about that. Yeah. So any of those would be nice Oklahoma obviously would be the biggest win because that would be a gigantic upset of which, would be felt all over the country for Houston to beat them, given how each of them started the season. But yeah, I think the SEC ones would be the ones I would rather win if I had to pick.
I mean, the best win would be Oklahoma, but it's not happening. There's not a chance of that happening. The second best win would be a top 25 win, and that's Iowa. So that would be a big win for Iowa State, especially if they're going to be one of your contenders. And then beyond that, it'd be the other two SEC games, which are more doable than Houston beating Oklahoma. So I'd say the ranked wins are the ones that are most important. And then after that, it'd be Arkansas and Mississippi State, because I think there's a chance that those don't go your way, although I have a much greater belief in the Cowboys than I do in the Sun Devils late night Pac-12 after dark. They looked good last week, but I don't know. Mississippi State's I think it's a pretty equal matchup, if anything. So that one could be a little bit tougher to come by. We'll see on Saturday night, though. But yeah, that's how I would go. But you're not beating Oklahoma. So your best bet is Iowa, and even then that's been lopsided, but we'll see. There's a lot of great opportunities out there.
That would be a great win for the Cyclones against a team that has pretty much for the most part owned that rivalry. Okay, I got a kind of a trivia question from the Blitz that I get every week. Who is number one all time in college football? In the chat room, you could come up with your answers too. Who is number one all time when it comes to the most wins in their history against the number one ranked team in the Associated Press?
I'm going to say Ohio State.
They are not number one. They're maybe in the top 10.
Oklahoma.
Oklahoma is just ahead of Ohio State. Here's the crazy part. Now, you think about it and you go, oh, my God, I have 20-something or whatever. 11 times Alabama has beaten what was then when they played the number one ranked team in the AP. They've played 17 times against the number one team in the Associated Press. They're 11-6. Miami, with such a young history, be my next guess. They are under 500 at 9-10, but they have 9. Notre Dame is 9-17 in their history. Oklahoma has 7 wins. They're 7-16. USC 7-11. 7-13. Purdue is 7-11, and then teams with 5 wins. Ohio State is 5-10. Texas is 5-12. Auburn is 5-13. Those are the teams and their records against the number one ranked team in the country. For example, you take a school that's won 5 national titles, and my favorite, Nebraska, 1-11. Against what is the number one ranked team in the Associated Press. It's not easy. It's hard. Arkansas is 4-24, which means they've played a bunch of teams inside the number one in the Associated Press. But I would have I don't know how it probably used the Blue Bloods. That would be smart. But how many have a 500 record or better? It's like Alabama's 11-6, and that's pretty much it. Nobody else that I see on this list from the Blitz has a 500 or better record against number one ranked AP team.
I guess I didn't pick Alabama because I thought it was too obvious. But yeah, I mean it makes all the sense in the world. They're the most decorated program for a reason.
LSU, 2 wins and 16 losses.
Ugh.
I mean, you're playing the number one team. There's a reason why, but you would think that
most
maybe
of those came against Bama too.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe. Florida State 1-7. That doesn't mean how many games you've won yourself when you were ranked number one, but it's hard. It's hard to beat number one. It's hard to win games against the top 5 and 10 teams.
I would bet you a couple of those 7 were wide rights.
Miami. Oh, no question.
Yeah.
Had to be probably a Miami.
And another couple were
Florida.
Florida.
And Urban was there.
Or Spurrier.
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly right. I'll just give out Georgia's 2-6. Penn State 4-12. Those are some numbers against teams ranked against playing the number one ranked team in the country since 1936 when the poll came out. And there are a ton of teams who are winless in that particular role. Below, a list of all the teams from the Big 10, Big 12, ACC, even the Pac-12 and SEC and Notre Dame, all-time win-loss record when they have played the number one ranked team in the Associated Press poll. Alabama is the only one with above 500. And not only that, they're 11-6, which is very, very obviously and very impressive. All right, around the corner, Taylor McHargue, former Rice quarterback, works for CBS and also for ESPN. Thanks again to Green Gridiron for that absolutely gorgeous helmet that is on the set. We also will hear from Rod Babers on that Texas-Michigan game coming up Saturday in Ann Arbor, among many others. This is 365 Sports. PettyClinicLowT.com. Dr. Kent Petty can help you become the high-performance man you want to be, need to be, and used to be. 1 out of every 3 to 4 men have symptomatic issues of low testosterone. It could be just flat out your energy. It could be that you've seen a little bit of like your stomach, little belly fat, and you might be active and have a pretty good diet, but that can lead to it because testosterone, of course, is constantly like feeding your system. Also, it could be your focus. And, of course, it could be sex drive, ED, or something like that that gets most of the attention. Dr. Kent Petty can help you out by setting up an appointment for you. You call him, where staff will get you lined up to get your blood work. They'll take care of it. He will get the results and then put you in a program if your testosterone level is too low. 1 of every 3 or 4 men have symptomatic issues of low testosterone. So contact them, pettycliniclowt.com. Get your blood work. He'll get the results, be in touch with you, and give you an option to increase your testosterone level at pettycliniclowt.com. Become the high-performance man you want to be, need to be, and used to be.
Get behind the wheel of the 2024 Jeep Grand Cherokee Overland at Allen Samuels in Waco. Choose between 2 or 3 rows and save $12,000 or take advantage of 0% financing. Looking for something smaller? Drive home a 2024 Jeep Compass Latitude 4x4 and save $9,760 or take 0% financing and get $3,000. Don't miss out during the Make This the Summer of Jeep event at Allen Samuels in Waco, where we deliver your next adventure. See dealer for details.
Come by. Let's be friends.
In Texas, there's pea-size hail and baseball-size hail. Guess which one hit our house? We didn't even know where to begin, but we called our Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent, and he was so reassuring. He knew exactly what to do to get our house back into shape and our lives back to normal. Now, we're even more thankful for the roof over our heads.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Ghost Hydration is a fully transparent, fully loaded, full-flavored hydration drink that we've all been waiting for. Ghost is caffeine-free with electrolytes, 0 sugar, and low sodium that'll hydrate your body before, during, and after your workout. Consumer loved with authentic flavors, so grab and enjoy a Sour Patch Kids Blue Raspberry and Red Berry, along with the Kiwi Strawberry, Orange Squeeze, or Lemon Lime. Ghost Hydration can truly be used anytime. Remember, it's formulated for sports, but made for life.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
When you work with a bank, you should expect the best of everything. That includes face-to-face personal service and the kind of community banking care that only comes from one neighbor to another. That's exactly what you'll get from the First National Bank of Central Texas, where you will know your banker works just as hard as you do. Once again, that's the First National Bank of Central Texas. Settle for nothing less than the first. Member FDIC.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
By the way, some of the question about who has the most wins against number 1 in the chat room. MC Gusto said Notre Dame. Paxton said Nebraska. Go Black 45, Notre Dame. Fong Wei. Reldman said Nebraska. Scotty B, USC. Kyle said Miami. The old barn cat, Go K-State, said Oklahoma, and Paxton also threw out LSU. Arbuck was the one that was right in the end said Alabama. Stormy mentioned Oklahoma.
All right, so I just got a text from John Kurtz. He says the Chipotle raspberry bean dip is awesome. It's one of the best things you can eat in Manhattan. It has a cult following.
Really? I guess that's why he put it up. But I've seen people, if Washington State beats Texas Tech, I'm going to drink hot coffee from a red Solo cup. It's gotten to the point where it has absolutely run its course. By the way, coming up on Saturday, our pregame, even though Utah and Baylor play later in the day, our pregame will be at 9 o'clock Saturday morning, 9 until 10:30 here on 365 Sports, but also on KWTX, the local CBS affiliate. So that's coming up. And there will be a postgame show following Utah and Baylor that night here on 365 Sports. Also, Tulane beating Kansas State will make me mad. The Big 12 needs to not be the laughing stock this year. Metal is trying to be complimentary to the Big 12, but mad at them because of his fantastic Memphis Tigers, who have Florida State just around the corner.
Yeah, let's not talk about that.
Because Memphis and Boise State have done their part. Big 12, you got to do it too. So, but this is so true. They just got to win games. They got to win games against teams that might be compared against them in other conferences as well. Let's see here. That's pretty much it for so far from the chat room on a couple of the topics that we had from earlier today. Does anyone have a Peacock? We're waiting on Taylor. Does anyone have a Peacock subscription? I'm wondering if the damn AAU isn't watching the games. If they actually saw us play, they'd send out the invite today. Metal goes to that AAU argument. It does that every time.
Yeah. Well, I hope it works out for them. I have Peacock. It's fine. I think, Craig, you have Peacock, right?
Yeah, it's got the WWE network.
Yeah.
And a couple of other things that I watch. Metal's a fan of who?
Memphis.
And thinks they have a chance at the Big Ten?
No, he's been harping on both Boise State and Memphis into the Big 12. He knows they missed that window, but that doesn't mean that
I was just clarifying there. I mean, there's simple ways to go and change the narrative, and the simplest way is, and really the only way, quite frankly, is to go and win football games. So that's what you got to go do. So anything you can do to go win those games and try to change that narrative is what you need to do. Otherwise, it's going to be status quo.
Paxton, by the way, then we go to Taylor. If Texas beats Michigan, I'll drink a 30-pack, which I'm probably going to do anyway.
Yeah, I would imagine so. Yeah, I would imagine.
Taylor McHargue, CBS, ESPN, former Rice quarterback, joins us every week, has a game or two, and he joins us on 365 Sports on Wednesdays. Taylor, let's start with the game in Ann Arbor, in the Big House, with Michigan, the defending national title holders, 110,000 plus, and Texas, of course, who looked really, really good in their opening game against Colorado State.
Well, I think the first thing right off the top, Michigan's got some quarterback problems. That's what stood out to me. That's what I'm looking for most in this matchup. And then the second piece, I think Texas obviously took care of business against Colorado State, but the front that Michigan is going to present on the defensive side of the ball is still one of the best in college football. Quinn Ewers has shown he's really risen to the occasion in the biggest moments. I go back to Alabama a year ago. The games where he struggled have really more been against teams where maybe they were heavy favorites. But I expect Texas to be prepared for this game. If they can keep him protected, keep him upright, and not have somebody in his lap, I think this line is maybe even a little bit favorable to Michigan. I thought they really looked poor on the offensive side of the ball. If Michigan can't create some turnovers on the defensive side, I think this has a chance to be more like a 2-score win for Texas.
Taylor, when you're looking at a team like Michigan who doesn't announce the starter until the day of the first game, do you see that as gamesmanship or more panic from a coaching staff?
I don't think my read on this, and they were pretty tight-lipped about it through most of the offseason, but my read was that it looked like they had really put all their eggs in the basket of Orgy through the offseason and through camp, and he obviously didn't perform well enough in camp to give him the starting nod. there's a lot of programs that have done the same thing where they try to hide who the starter is going to be all the way through camp. But to me, again, it goes back to, for Michigan to have a chance in this game, they're going to have to get after the quarterback. They've got to figure out a way to get after Quinn Ewers. And a week ago, I know it was against Colorado State, but I thought that was one of the better performances really of the entire week one, in terms of a team that took care of business against an inferior opponent that they should win big against. We look around the country at how many matchups, like Oregon and Idaho, for example, that really struggled and sort of played with their food and didn't handle business the way that you would expect them to. I thought Texas came out, played well. But going back to your point on sort of the gamesmanship, it's not uncommon in college football these days. But my read on it again is I don't think Alex Orji did nearly well enough in camp, or what they expected they were going to get out of him, and now they've got issues at the quarterback spot.
Taylor, did you get any eyes on Arch Manning's stint towards the end of that game?
Yeah, he looked good. It was nice to see him in a game. I know Texas fans were excited to see him in. Making plays off script. I think that's the thing that a lot's been made of his athleticism, but I still don't think people realize what a good athlete he is, and the kind of the element that he adds with his legs. Moved around, obviously, at first touchdown, moving to his right, kind of an off-script play. They've got the best quarterback room in the country. I don't think that's that's not groundbreaking news. I think between Quinn Ewers and then Arch behind him, if anything were to happen to Quinn this season, which the last 2 seasons he's gotten banged up, it wouldn't surprise me at all if there really wasn't a step backwards or any sort of regression if Arch had to play meaningful snaps this year.
Taylor, Utah hosts Baylor this weekend in Salt Lake City. The Utes look really good. Cam Rising looked good. They got a couple of injuries, but the way that Coach Whittingham and that team goes about their business, they win. They could end up, depending on what happens in front of them, inside the top 10, which would be great for the Big 12. Your thoughts about Utah? I don't think Baylor has a chance to win this game unless Utah throws up on themselves, and they don't do that.
Yeah, you need Cam Rising to play poorly. You need to create some turnovers. I do think it looked like a more spirited effort, at least in week one for Baylor. But I think I agree with you. This is going to be a challenge. I think for Utah, there's a reason they're a favorite in the conference. You almost wonder, does it benefit Baylor if there's any sort of potential look ahead spot? I know it's still a couple weeks until they have to go to Oklahoma State for Utah. But that's a really physical football team. Watched a little bit of their game Thursday night. I believe it was against Southern Utah, and obviously an inferior opponent, but they came out, they look sharp. You've got to figure out a way to turn Cam Rising over. And in his whatever year this is of college football that he's playing, that's easier said than done. But for Utah, that matchup, like we had Oklahoma State in week one, that matchup coming up towards the end of the month, that to me is, if you just circle that for the entire Big 12 calendar, that may be the biggest game for the entire season, with Utah having to go to Oklahoma State in a couple weeks.
Taylor, which Oregon are we going to see this week? Are we going to see a scared or a kind of not scared, but wonky Oregon like we saw last week, or will they be focused and ready to take on a Boise State team that has one of the best players in the country on it?
Oregon moved the football well against Idaho almost all game. What killed them was third down penalties. They had so many drives where they're moving the ball well and they stall out and they don't come away with points. But regardless of how you slice it, that's an FCS opponent that it was a 3-point game in the fourth quarter. And I don't care what Oregon fans say about the performance. And sure, they did move the ball well. That's still a pretty underwhelming performance in week one. They did not look motivated. It looked flat. Boise State on the other side, Maddox Madsen he was okay in week one, but Ashton Genty, obviously the big storyline. I still think Boise State is going to score. I don't think they're going to score at the clip that they did against Georgia Southern. I would imagine Dan Lanning has his guys ready to go, and that you're hoping, if you're a Oregon fan, that was the shot in the arm that they needed to find some motivation, because if they come out and play as flat as they did a week ago,
whoop, we lost him. The Zoom link went out. We'll try to see if we can reestablish that, Garrett, either on your side or on his side. By the way, Zach Gelb had the Boise State quarterback on his show this week on CBS Sports, and so that'll be interesting to He's going to join us today at 5 o'clock to kind of discuss Boise State and also Oregon, who, just kind of like won. And by the way, paid for it. And one of the polls dropped a pretty good ways. We got him back. I'm sorry about that, Taylor. Back to Boise State. You were talking about that game with Oregon.
Yeah, for Boise State, they will score at a better clip than Idaho did a week ago. I don't think there's any doubt about that. But for Dan Lanning and the Oregon staff, I think you're hoping, if you're an Oregon fan, that week 1 got their attention. You'll see a more spirited effort in week 2.
Taylor, what are your thoughts on what Florida State's rolling through right now with the 2 losses to start the year, and obviously a lot of talk about DJ Uiagalelei and his play or lack thereof?
I think Florida State has a number of issues, and it's not just DJU who is not playing well. The inaccuracies that we saw at Clemson and at Oregon State, they're showing up again. But their defensive line, I mean, the defensive line to me, going back to week 0 against Georgia Tech, got pushed around. It happened again this week against Boston College. I think it also, if you are a Florida State fan, you got to be really frustrated. And this sounds more like an excuse, but you got to be really frustrated with the schedule. Having to play 2 conference matchups back to back, and one of them being in Ireland. I don't think there's a program of Florida State's caliber shouldn't be doing that. Texas wouldn't do that. Alabama wouldn't do that. And Florida State fans have every right to be frustrated with not only that, but being put on standalone stages where this is worst case scenario, right? They were the only game on back-to-back weeks and lost both games. So now you've got the eyes of the world. And after they lost to Georgia Tech, I think you could see that was a tight football team that was not playing loose. They were not relaxed. So not only do they have issues that we've already talked about, but now everybody in the country has seen them. So look, Paul Feinbaum said the season's over. I don't know if the season's fully over, but their chances at the playoffs are over. 2 straight losses in ACC play to open the season when most schools have only played 1 game, and a lot of it was tune-up games for their peers. I think there's obviously a lot of frustration for Florida State fans, and it's warranted for sure.
Taylor, what were your thoughts about DJU as a thrower, as a passer, when he was at Clemson, and then, of course, at Oregon State? Because I saw a lot of chatter that night. It was easy because it was easy pickings because he was struggling. What were your thoughts about him as a quarterback?
Inaccurate downfield is kind of the biggest thing that stood out to me going, back to his days at Clemson. There's a reason that they, in both of these games so far for Florida State, have kept the ball near the line of scrimmage. The air yards per completion, I think it's still below 8 yards, 7-8 yards for most of their completions, and it's screens, it's quick game. You've seen the shot plays down the field where I go back to, there were a couple against Georgia Tech where there's plays to be made and he doesn't hit them. You're asking if Florida State fans thought that they were getting a guy that's going to be able to put you on their back and throw for 350 yards. That's not the guy. Florida State also, to DJU's, to kind of stick up for him and defend him, there is not an elite talent at receiver. You do not have somebody on the outside that's your go-to guy that on deep shots is great in 50-50 scenarios. You don't have anybody in the slot that's super dynamic. So you're asking him to play near perfect in these situations where he's not capable of it. I don't know what – there was so much made of him this offseason that he was going to become this new-look quarterback that can stand and deliver the ball downfield week in and week out and on those critical downs and under pressure. He was never that at Clemson, and he wasn't that at Oregon State either.
But every coach is out there when they see a talent like that, they can fix them, right? Sometimes, and it's hard. I think it's hard, especially when you got a kid like DJU who does all the right things, says all the right things, is the leader on the team, is a pretty humble dude. You have coaches that root for him, but sometimes it's hard to just pull the plug.
Well, and for Mike Norvell, that was the solution for a team that didn't have a great – you saw in the ACC championship and the Orange Bowl a year ago, there was not a ton of depth in that quarterback room to begin with. And so, look, the portal can solve a lot of problems at a lot of positions. The quarterback is challenging, and they went out and in a not very deep quarterback class. I would say DJU was still certainly in the top 5 of the transfer quarterbacks, but that doesn't mean that he's going to come in and play All-American Heisman level football. And for Florida State fans, I think that was some of the expectation, was there was going to be this massive leap, and he's just not that player. I think he's an average college quarterback, and it sounds like such an indictment because he's playing at Florida State, where the expectation is through the roof, especially coming after last season and Jordan Travis. But that wasn't fair to DJU. He was never really that at Clemson, and he wasn't that at Oregon State either.
Hey, Taylor, you don't mind if we bring up the game you're at this week, but also I saw that kind of the disappointment. Sam Houston State, with what they've done, they're pretty good, but they beat Rice up pretty good. That was a disappointing start for them.
Yeah, gosh, man, I typed out like 10 different tweets and deleted all of them. I don't have a ton of good things to say right now. It's extremely frustrating. The roster doesn't look great. There's not a ton of talent, not a lot of talent at the skill positions, especially. That is Casey Keeler. Credit to Casey Keeler. His team was ready to go. They were more physical. They were more violent. But I also thought they had more talent at the skill positions. E.J. Warner, I had him a couple years ago against Temple, and I don't know if he's regressed or if it's in the system, but he was not sharp at all. And yeah, for a Rice program that, they're coming up on a decade of not having a winning season, there's absolutely some fatigue in the community of Rice football fans, which there's not a lot of to begin with.
Thank you, man. And the game you have, tease the game you have.
Yeah, we got San Jose State and Air Force. Should be a good one. Mountain West matchup. It's on in that 6:00 window, and there's like 50 games on, but we should have a good one. So if you want to watch some Mountain West action, we'll be on CBS Sports Network.
Well, we'll be able to ask you about Air Force next week when they come into Texas to play Baylor. Taylor, thank you as always. Appreciate your time. Taylor McHargue with us, color analyst, television analyst with us on college football and some of the games going on, of course, this week. Around the corner, Stephenson Sylvester played at Utah, played in the NFL with the Steelers, and now radio with Utah. His thoughts about Utah, Baylor, and the game coming up this weekend, Kyle Whittingham and Cam Rising and more. And this is 365 Sports. The Baylor Club, they're going to have a watch party coming up on Saturday. Baylor and Utah kick off at 2:30. You can join them at the Baylor Club as they have the watch party for the game against Utah, which could be electrifying, depends on how well Baylor can play. Delicious food and drinks available throughout the event. Whether you're a diehard Baylor supporter or you just love college football and the thrill of watching it, the perfect place to soak in the game and atmosphere with all the amenities and all the food and the drinks that you want at the Baylor Club inside McLean Stadium. You can go online, go to their Facebook page, and get reservations if you're not a member. Also, don't forget, the following week they're at home. That's the week they also honor that 1974 Southwest Conference Championship team, Grant Taff and Company. So a huge, huge moment for you if you want to enjoy the game from what you can find and get inside the Baylor Club. Mike Mosel, by the way, last Saturday during their tailgate with HEB, they sold 3 new Baylor Club memberships, and Mike said that was a nice deal because sometimes they can go throughout the day because people are kind of occupied about the game, so he was excited about that. One of our new sponsors during football season, General Manager Mike Mosel, the Baylor Club inside McLean Stadium.
Hi, I'm Mark Stewart with Bird Colgin Ford. It's that time of year. It's football season. Bird Colgin Ford is a proud supporter of the best high school football right here in Central Texas. BK Ford is proud to sell the #1 selling truck in Texas, the F-Series truck, 47 years in a row. Come see the largest showroom in Texas and experience better at Bird Colgin Ford.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at AllianceBankTexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
It's football and tailgate season. If you want product for the grill or smoker, charcoal, seasonings, marinades, sauces, Waco Custom Marketplace is your home to help prep, cook, and enjoy your food. Tailgate muscle-like brisket, tri-tip, fresh-made burgers, sausage, chicken wings, and if you want steaks, call in your order and pick them up. Bacon wrap fillets or any kind of ribeyes. USDA Select Choice and Prime that melt in your mouth. House-made sausage and jerky. Also, Waco Custom Marketplace, a one-stop shop for tailgating, barbecue cook-offs, and family get-togethers, fundraisers with fair prices to you, the customer. A bakery with fresh baked bread and kolaches. There's cold beer, wine, and soft drinks. Serving Waco restaurants and families since 1940. A cut above the rest. Waco Custom Marketplace, open Monday through Saturday at 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
This is 365 Sports. Text us at 254-339-1122. The text line is sponsored by Riverbend's Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
365 Sports on this Wednesday afternoon. Tomorrow, of course, we'll go to one more pod. Today, we still have another pod in the Big 12 to look at the four corner schools later in the show, around 5:20 or so. And then tomorrow, we get back to some of the originals with Texas Tech, TCU, Baylor, and also Oklahoma State. It's been a great idea. It's been a great kind of fun, rather than trying to get analysts in 15 minutes on Oklahoma State or TCU. We will still do that, of course, like we're going to have Stephenson Sylvester here momentarily on Utah. But I've kind of liked it that way to break down the games. Now, when it comes to, and Stephenson Sylvester played at Utah, it is a part of Utah radio in just a moment. Did you guys see any of Utah whatsoever? Did you even look at that
the other night? Yeah, I did. I was curious to see how Cam Rising moved around. Not so much can he stand still and throw the ball accurately. I wanted to see him move and avoid people running at him, and it looked pretty good. I mean, he's still going to be able to kind of stick his neck in there and do the things that make him Cam Rising. So, yeah, I know it was Southern Utah, but my focus was, does he look like a shell of himself moving around? I remember, when Mackenzie Milton started playing again, you thought, well, it's great he's back, but you watched him and he just wasn't the same again after such a rough injury. I'd worried about that for Cam Rising because it was so bad, but he looked pretty good.
Stephenson Sylvester joins us, Utah, former Utah star and Utah radio analyst as well, joins us on 365 Sports. Stephenson, hey, man, how you been? Good to see you. What were your thoughts about Cam Rising for the first time in a while?
Oh, man, it was absolutely awesome to see it. It actually puts things back into perspective for you. You don't realize how much you need a quarterback until you have your quarterback. And so Cam Rising being back, literally, for me, it felt like 5 touchdowns in just a quarter. Was great. I know it was an FCS opponent, but just to see the rhythm and the chemistry that he has with his receivers already is awesome. I know a big highlight in that game was him tying his teammates' shoes. I've seen it on like 3 different occasions. It's a small thing, but a big thing as far as, having your teammates buy into you and having that trust and his teammates vibing. And I just think that it's going to pose as great things in the future.
Brant Keithy back too. And that was one, I think that, when Cam Rising's out and Brant Keithy's also out, you maybe forget a little bit about, this tight end that's one of the best in the country. Right. And look, he played, a big role in the game, and he looked good as well. So it's not only just getting him back, it's getting the best and most talented pass catcher they had back too.
Yeah, it was actually very interesting because, it's like you have so many weapons across the board, from Money Parks to Dorian Singer to Caleb Lohner, who's a new basketball ad. You guys know him well on the basketball side. To Landon King, who didn't even get a lot of action, so expect a lot from him this week. To Tayshawn Lyons. They have so many different weapons. It could literally be anybody on any given play. And that's what I love is Cam Rising is a quarterback that can spread the ball around. But, that whole first quarter, you didn't hear nothing from Brant Keepy. And then an explosion in that second quarter. So it's like you have so many things to worry about is what makes this defense or makes this offense so dangerous to game plan for. It's like, who do you pay attention to? Because literally they told me this in the post-game interviews. It could be anybody's day, and even in the post-game, message from Coach Whittingham, he's like, you guys don't worry about I didn't get my looks, I didn't get my receptions. That is not what we're doing here. What we're doing here is about the team. So it could be you next week just because it wasn't you this week. And so that message is radiating through the locker room. And these guys are a real team. It's a real joy to see.
Staying on that topic of playmaker, Stephenson, Dijon Stanley, the young running back. I mean, just a sophomore, had 2 huge touchdown receptions, but just a big game overall receiving. Not as much running, but receiving, which is interesting. I know he's a young guy who's just kind of getting his feet wet, but just what were your impressions of his explosive ability and the dynamic that adds as well?
It brought me back to being a freshman in high school. Right. And going against the varsity, and there's this guy, his name was Mike Barnes. He was fast. Right. And as he's running by all of us, he's just like, you can't coach speed. And that's what it reminded me of. And his speed is just dynamic. It doesn't matter the opponent. That speed is going to show. And I think that's an extreme talent of his. And for me, it just goes to Andy Ludwig, our offensive coordinator. How are you going to utilize all of these assets? Right? We haven't even talked about Mekhi Bernard. Mekhi Bernard is that hybrid receiver, athlete, running back. He could play anything. And so he just makes our offense so versatile. But guys like Dijon Stanley, you're going to hear new names every single week of who's contributing on this offense alongside Cam Rising. Of course, you're going to have your staples and Brant Keithy, and Landon King and Dorian Singer, but you're going to have these other guys step up that you'll never see, that you never heard of before.
Hey, Caleb Lohner is a great story, obviously. Came to Baylor from BYU. Now he's a tight end. Baylor had a history of basketball players who ended up playing football, from Ish Wainwright to others. And so here you have with what he's doing, but at Utah now playing Baylor, and he caught a touchdown in the opening game. Stephenson, your thoughts? It looks like he kind of fits right in.
Well, first off, they wanted him to have a touchdown, right? Because one of the first things Coach Whittingham said in the game, or in the post game message, was, "Hey Caleb, does it feel better to get a dunk or a touchdown?" He shouted out a touchdown, definitely. He's loving football. He, as a basketball player, he was already extremely physical. So him fitting in is awesome. Watching him at practice and training camp this fall was a joy because he was a raw talent, but a quick study. And he loves it. He loves getting physical. He loves getting his hands dirty. He can put his face in there on blocking. And so that's something you don't normally see from basketball players, especially against our type of defensive line. So he still has a lot of development to go. But as you can see, he's a talented guy. And you can't teach 6'8". You can't teach 6'8" and a 38-inch vertical. And so around the goal line, he's going to be a threat no matter what week we got. But, I love seeing that transition. And that has worked well in the NFL. And I think that he's going to have an NFL possible career just because he's so talented. Antonio Gates, Tony Gonzalez, Jimmy Graham. He has that type of and even more athleticism. I'm excited to see Andy Ludwig utilize him in this offense this year.
Stevens, what's your biggest concern about Utah versus Baylor? What do you think the thing they're going to have to stop the most is?
Well, I don't want to give out kind of any hints to Baylor, give them any.
No, go ahead. It's fine. Nobody's listening. It's all
no. But one of the staples from Utah is their physicality. Since I was a player there, it's been a staple of Coach Whittingham's culture, his aura that he wants to put into, and I just didn't see enough in the running game. And I know, especially playing Baylor last year and what Baylor's been able to do this year thus far, their defensive front, their front seven is great. They have athletic linebackers, athletic defensive linemen, and I think that they might cause us fits. And so we're sitting over here talking about all of Utah's assets. If Cam Rising is under duress all game, or you're not able to establish a running game to keep the defense honest, we're going to have some trouble. And so for me, that's my biggest question mark. But I have all the trust in the world in this coaching staff and Coach Harding, the offensive line coach, to make sure that our offensive line, our running backs, Cam Rising's protection is what it needs to win the football game. And so as far as Utah goes, you can't really get a lot from the SUU game, but I think that there's going to be a huge test this weekend and seeing exactly where Utah is.
I think the last time we talked to you, I asked about Rice-Eccles Stadium, but for those that maybe missed it, what makes Utah so good at home under Kyle Whittingham?
It's like, as an opponent, whenever you need to do something important, whether that is hold the snap, it feels like it's always in the student section area. Like I don't know what a game planning, how game flow goes, but anytime an opponent needs something, it's always in the area where you can't hear nothing on the field. So your communication, as far as Baylor's going to have to go, you're going to have nonverbal communication. I hope these guys studied sign language, in the offseason to be able to communicate, because for some reason in that south end zone, you hear the student section, the crowd, the atmosphere, the Olympic cauldron when that goes on fire late at nights, just the mountains and the air. It is hard to breathe. I remember my sophomore year, we played UCLA. UCLA was number 10 or 11 in the country. And literally after the first quarter, they couldn't breathe. And so that's where we just took off and we ended up routing them. And I think that plus the crowd noise, plus, just being in a different environment all plays a factor in Utah's physicality on top of that, and having to be alert and on top of all of your P's and Q's just makes it extremely hard to come out of Utah with a win.
Stephenson, how hard is it? You played the game, but how hard is it that when a team, no matter what the score, they don't get away from what is their identity or what they do best? I thought last year Utah could have panicked. It wasn't like they were doing much, but they weren't like out of it, but they just kept doing what they do. They changed the quarterback at the end, which made a difference. Baylor threw the bad pick, but they never panicked. How hard is it to not do that when you get down, especially on a game on the road or anywhere, quite frankly?
Well, you have to trust yourself, right? And one thing that Utah is, and especially having a defensive coach as your head coach, is we have a good defense, right? And Morgan Scally is he's a psycho when it comes to football. Even as a player, when he was a young coach, when I was there, he loves the game so much. The way he studies, the way he prepares, he's ready for any moment. So his defenses are always going to be ready for that moment. And I think that our defense was just kept us in that game last year. I know you guys had an injury at quarterback heading into the game against us as well. You guys were down quarterbacks just like we were. So it was a game of defense last year, and that showed up. And I think the team that can hold out the longest, the team that has that much mental conditioning to hold yourself all the way to the end is going to come out victorious. And that was us last year. I think that our defensive attention to detail was just a little bit longer than you guys's, and we ended up making a turnover at the end, and we ended up taking the lead. So it's those little things, that against tough opponents and opponents that are on the same level is who's going to come out in the end. And for us, it was the defense, and which is held true all these years under Coach Whittingham. Coach Whittingham's defense has always been kind of the staple of his football teams.
Stephenson, I got to ask you this question. How many times over your lifetime have people said your name backwards?
I don't even recognize anymore, but it was every single time. I think as of the last 3 years as a commentator is when people has actually started to get it right. And it's a pleasant surprise. But, my mom, sister, cousins, family, friends, high school, I've been called every single different name, from Steve to Steven to Stephenson to Sly to Sylvester. I got everything. So honestly, I respond to it all. I don't even notice, but more often than not, people get it backwards.
You mentioned the crowd at Utah, the atmosphere there. What is something if a Baylor fan gets to Utah, Salt Lake City for that game on a Friday, they fly in on Friday to get the atmosphere and enjoy it, where should they go?
Gotta go. Oh, you want to go to the tailgate or you want to go into town?
Either one.
So if you go to tailgate, you got to go to the Pig Bus. The Pig Bus down there on the east side tailgate lot. It's awesome. It's the main tailgate lot. Pig Bus, you can't miss it. They just added a triple decker on there. It looks like a pig. It's crazy. But they got amazing food, amazing music. That area right there, you can bounce around. Utah fans are great, first of all. They are also inviting. They love it. They love the banter. They have great tailgate setup. I love that. We're doing this new thing now. We have a whole DJ set up over in that area too. So come down to the Smiths tailgate lot and DJ Juggy is just going to go ham. So the music, the atmosphere, it's going to be awesome. It's on a Saturday. He's good. The weather's going to be perfect. There's just so many things. And I love where the stadium and tailgate sits. You're right up against the mountains. And right now the trees are changing colors. So you're getting the full fall atmosphere at Utah. This would be no better time to go to Utah. But for me, it's the tailgate lot. Downtown atmosphere is awesome. This weekend they're having the Greek Festival, which I can't wait till the game's over. I'm going to go down there and get some grub. But there's a lot of things going on in Utah you'll absolutely love.
I saw they're going to go with their all red look Saturday. Good looking uniform. I love the color red, the one you're wearing, the hat right now. Stephenson, thanks for your time. We love having you on. Appreciate your knowledge.
Appreciate you guys, James. Talk to you soon.
Stephenson Sylvester, Utah radio, former Utah, played in the NFL with the Steelers with that defensive mentality of Whittingham and then going to play for Pittsburgh and Mike Tomlin and company. That's a great, great fit. Around the corner, we discussed a little bit about Michigan and how many teams have gone inside to play in Ann Arbor that have been ranked in the top 10 non-conference games. And one of those, of course, is coming up with number 3 Texas this Saturday. And Rod Babers will join us here in just a moment. Meanwhile, it's another auction. There are 3 live auctions this weekend or this month. 3 live auctions this month at TexasBeefHouse.com. Jack and Paul, by the way, won their bid on some hamburger, beef, some ground hamburger, and more from TexasBeefHouse.com with the live auction that was last week. Now they have one that they added to the mix, which is going to be next week. In fact, it's a week from today, TexasBeefHouse.com. Go to their website, TexasBeefHouse.com, the Duvall family, and what they have done on their ranch with Angus cattle, Wagyu beef, and so much more. But TexasBeefHouse.com. What's going to happen next? It's a week from today and tomorrow, so Wednesday, Thursday, Wagyu fillets, Wagyu ribeyes, also Angus tomahawk steaks, Wagyu New York strip, Angus tomahawk steaks, so both Wagyu and Angus tomahawk steaks, the strip steak, they have it all right there. That's going to be a part of the Wagyu roast is also, along with Angus roast, a part of the next one. There's skirt steak, beef bacon, and more. Ground beef also a part of the next live auction next Wednesday, Thursday. Go to TexasBeefHouse.com. Front part of the homepage, you'll see a bid on beef. That will pop up. You can click on that. It will take you to what's available next Wednesday, Thursday. Unbelievable product raised, and then, of course, from their family to yours, from their pasture to your plate, TexasBeefHouse.com.
At Genco, our goal is to build long-lasting relationships while providing complete financial solutions for each step of life's journey. Our members enjoy fewer fees, lower rates on loans of all types, and higher yields on a wide variety of savings options. That's just a small part of the credit union difference. Visit Genco online, on Facebook, or come by one of our 5 locations today. Apply online for membership. Genco FCU, NCUA Equal Housing Lender.
My money, my future, my credit union. Genco.
Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
Ready to take your business to the next level? Carrion Solutions has got you covered. We deliver world-class IT consulting, including Quest On Demand and Migration Manager, M365 and Exchange migrations, Active Directory assessments, security hardening, and Windows Server upgrades. Our experts specialize in consulting, monitoring, support, and managed IT services. We promise vision, professionalism, and unbeatable value. Satisfaction guaranteed. If you're not happy, we make it right. Remember the name Carrion Solutions. For more info, email sales@carrionsolutions.com or visit carrionsolutions.com. That's CARRION solutions.com. Carrion Solutions IT success guaranteed.
Developed by Startup Waco, a nonprofit organization, GXG is a program designed to support the entrepreneurial development of Baylor University student athletes through NIL activations. The program helps student athletes maximize their platforms and offers a comprehensive support system for them to create and grow new businesses that not only benefit themselves, but also uplift the local economy. Fans who wish to support student athletes can donate to GXG via the GXG NIL Fund, BaylorBears.com/GXG. Contributions to support NIL activations through GXG can be made at BaylorBears.com/GXG. For more information, follow @GXG_GreenXGold on social media and visit the official website www.gxg.startupwaco.com. GXG, empowering student athlete entrepreneurship and uplifting the local economy through NIL activations.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
Former Longhorn defensive back and also played in the NFL. The Horn from 6 to 11 Monday through Friday, and also on Texas football analyst Rod Babers. Love it when he's on with us. Texas plays in Michigan against the defending national champs. Rod with us with Craig Smoak, Paul Catalina, and David Smoak. Rod, this seems to me that it's a good time to be on the road to play Michigan. I don't know if it's ever a good time, but with what UT has, and then also them going through transition, they didn't look that great. Not that they aren't good, but you feel like they may have this on the schedule at just the perfect time?
I agree with you. And thank you, gentlemen, for having me on. I appreciate that. And that's why, the line, right? We were talking about the point spread and how the line has dramatically shifted in just a few days. I think now, last time I looked at it, it's at 7.5. Initially, that line started at 3.5. So I think whether it's the Vegas guys or the public, a lot of people are looking at this matchup. They're leaning toward the Longhorns here. That Michigan defense still worries me a little bit. And if Michigan can run the ball, this will be a very different game. But if Texas can stop the run, there are not a lot of other options offensively for Michigan in terms of the passing game. And I think that's what Texas is going to lean on. And they stop the run. If they can stop the run, how does Michigan beat Texas other than being able to run the football? So I think that's why Texas has a lot of options offensively. Their wide receiving core is really deep. We'll see if they can run the football versus Michigan. I think that may also be a very compelling storyline too. But I think people feel good about the Longhorns and their chance of going up to Michigan pulling off the big win.
Don't have to say anything about this, but Paul and Craig as well. And Rod, this is the first time since 2020 that Michigan has been an underdog at home to someone other than Ohio State, Wisconsin, who they lost to 49-11 back during the COVID year. So that's how long it's been.
Rod, what did you learn about Texas last week against, admittedly, not a very good Colorado State team? So it's kind of hard to maybe get a gauge on how good that defense may be, even though it didn't give up any points. So that's a nice start.
It is. Actually, and I think we learned a lot. I didn't expect to learn a lot. I thought Texas would be pretty vanilla defensively. But Johnny Nansen, who's the defensive coordinator at Arizona, has come in as the co-DC with Pete Kwiatkowski. There's an interesting creative collaboration going on between the two. I saw in that game versus Colorado State. Now, Colorado State's an air raid team. Last year, they were top 20 in passing in the country, and they're kind of a bottom 20 rushing team from last season. But what Texas did against Colorado State was take away their strength They took away the passing game. They threw for less than 75 yards. Had a 100-yard rusher, but that was only out of Texas taking away their strength and forcing them to beat Texas left-handed, and it really worked out well. So that's what we learned, that Johnny Nansen brought in some really exotic looks. They played more dime coverage than I've seen them play the entire time PK has been here at Texas. They actually brought some 3-high safety looks. That is not something that Texas specialized in last season. They used the NASCAR package, which was at least three defensive ends and edge rushers on the field at one time. I saw an inverted Tampa 2 coverage from this Texas defense. So I think a lot of new looks and a lot of exotic concepts that Johnny Nansen's bringing to the table. I think you're going to see that versus Michigan too, guys. If the theme kind of holds for Johnny Nansen so far is, let's take away the strength of this team and force them to beat us with their weakness. And for Michigan, that will be taking away the run game and forcing those quarterbacks to beat you.
Rod, we just knew him as Trey Wisner, but Quintravion Wisner got in the end zone. I know he did one time last year, but he was amongst a bevy of backs, and it's well documented Texas struggles with injuries in the preseason. What did you think of just the cavalcade of guys who got reps, and just what are your feelings kind of right now on where the Texas run game stands?
Yeah, that is interesting. I think, losing C.J. Baxter, losing Christian Clark at one time, you're down to 3 scholarship running backs. But Jarrett Gibson, he ended up being the leading rusher for Texas in that game. Really surprised some folks. Trey Wisner is no surprise. They've been talking about Trey Wisner for a while, guys. I got a chance to interview him. He's mature beyond his years. He's been waiting for this moment. I thought they would abandon the 2 tailback pony package that they were running. It's a very successful pony package for them. Actually, it's their most explosive, efficient, and their most effective personnel grouping. And I thought they would abandon that since they don't have the depth at running back. They did not actually use that package versus Colorado State. I suspect we'll see it versus Michigan. So that says they have a lot of confidence in those running backs. And Trey Wisner and Jaden Blue, those guys are leading the way. But the young Jarrett Gibson, if he can learn how to pass protect, if he can learn, alignment, assignment, and the alignment assignment sound, and also learn ball security. That's a big thing for young backs. Running the football, not going to be an issue for him. And guys, the offensive line should lead the way. 4 or 5 stars returning on that O-line. Cam Williams won a co-SEC Offensive Lineman of the Week, and he's the new starter at right tackle for Texas. That offensive line could be a Joe Moore Award-worthy offensive line this year. This weekend will be the ultimate test. If you can run versus Michigan, guys, you can run on anybody in the country, because that's 2 D tackles are probably the best duo in the country.
Rod, what if I told you that when Trey Wisner was a sophomore in high school and the most dynamic player on the field, the biggest problem he had was he was not confident at all, and some of the better teams roughed him up a little bit until the switch finally went on? Would that shock you?
That would shock me a little bit, because he seems like a guy that's got supreme confidence and just a maturity about him. And I know he's a guy that wants to it talks about taking care of his family and how he had to grow up fast because of his family situation. And I just respect him a lot. And, that running back room is special, guys. The guys seem to wait their turn, and they seem to flourish when that opportunity arrives. Rojo behind Dijon, Jay Brooks behind C.J. Baxter last year. C.J. Baxter, remember, he was the guy that started last year, and then Jay Brooks came on after his injury. And then Jay Brooks get hurt, and then we see Jaden Blue step up. We see C.J. Baxter step up again, and both get 100-yard games. So there's a culture of excellence in that running back room, and Trey Wisner is definitely one of the leaders in that group.
Rod Baber's with us on 365 Sports. Texas and Michigan kick it off early. Both game day and big noon kickoff will be there at Ann Arbor inside the Big House. When you look at what Texas lost up front, and of course, you mentioned Jansen and what they have along with their coaching staff. They still have some dudes. They may not have who they had, but how impressed were you with how disruptive they were on the defensive front?
With Texas, losing Devondre Sweat and losing Byron Murphy, that's a huge loss. I mean, that was the best D-tackle duo in the country, probably second best all time for Texas behind Casey Hampton and Sean Rogers. So the truth is, they weren't really tested, that defensive front. Justin Marshall, the running back from Colorado State, did rush for over 100 yards. They weren't very efficient, but they didn't run to the outside, guys. They didn't run to the edges, not to the C and D gap. Most of that damage was done to the A and the B gap. So that is a concern going into the Michigan game. They want to play power football. They're going to run downhill. They're going to run duo. Are they going to be able to get some success and have some success in between the tackles. Because I think on the edges, Texas is actually going to be pretty fortified. Ethan Burke, Barron Sorrell, Colin Simmons, Colton Bostic. That is Trey Moore, of course. That is a really deep group. The question marks are on the inside. Alfred Collins, Vernon Bryden. They brought in Tia Sabella. They brought in Jermaine Lole. They brought in Bill Norton. All guys who actually have ties to Johnny Nansen. He either coached them before he got to Arizona or while he was at Arizona. So we'll see how he uses those guys. I wouldn't be surprised, guys, if we saw a bare front. We saw 5 down linemen potentially. Johnny Nansen's really creative and aggressive. And I think he's going to really use some of those defensive lines. We may only see a lot of base personnel, may not see that much nickel. Don't be surprised if Ja'Day Barron ends up lining up over the top of Colston Loveland. Guys, their passing game runs through Loveland. He is the tight end, might be the best tight end in the country. 9 targets versus Fresno State, caught 8 of them, 5 first downs / touchdowns, 4 first downs and a touchdown, guys. They had, how about this? They had two 20-yard plays in that game. One of them was to Loveland. They had 6 plays of 10 yards or more, 4 of them to Loveland. Ja'Day Barron might be moving around at safety, corner, or nickel just to match up with him. Watch that. That's pretty big for Texas.
Rod, I think this Ryan Wingo kid might be pretty good. Just no newsflash there, just spoil it for everybody. But in all seriousness, they had to revamp this wide receiver core. They did that through recruiting and the portal, and it was a successful look for many guys on Saturday. What were your first impressions?
Wow, that's it. Wow was my first impression. That's a deep group, guys. I'm a DB, so that's a nightmare scenario. And think about it. We were worried about how they were going to fill in different roles, the target share with that group because they're so deep. So in that game versus Colorado State, you had a different receiver because it was actually Isaiah Bond led you in targets and receptions. Matthew Golden, the transfer from U of H, he led you in touchdowns. He's the one that got the no-look pass from Quinn Ewers and also got the other red zone touchdown. So he's one of those guys. He may be the red zone threat for Texas. As you mentioned, Ryan Wingo, he led you in yards and yards after the catch. And I believe Dante Cook led you in yards per reception and had your longest play of the game in the passing game. So it seems like everybody might be able to fulfill their roles. And I didn't even mention Silas Bowden, who caught a touchdown from Archie Manning a little bit later in the game. Guys, they are deep, and you're right about Ryan Wingo. He's probably the most physically gifted receiver that Texas has gotten in recruiting since Roy Williams. He's that physically, freakishly gifted, and he's got that kind of height. So by midseason, I could see him being heavily considered in the rotation with all the other guys. So Texas may be 4 deep at wide receiving guys. So one of the receivers that started the game, Deontay Moore, he didn't even get a target, and he started the game. That's how deep they are.
What have you seen from Quinn Ewers that's better than last year?
The no-look pass was new. And apparently a lot of guys said Anthony Hill said he had been doing that in practice a lot. So he had been practicing it, and it wasn't something that was baked into the game plan. That was actually something that was improvised by him at the time. So that was pretty cool. But what I've noticed is the manipulation of defenders with eyes and feet. And it seems like that is something I saw him do it in the Colorado State game a couple of times. And obviously the no-look pass is a prime example of that. But I saw it in some other subtle, discreet ways. That's relatively new for Quinn. That's something he's added. And something else I think he is trying to add, and it'll play a big role in this Michigan game, guys, is stepping up in the pocket and pocket presence. When they asked Sark, what does Quinn need to work on? He specifically said pocket presence, getting deeper into progressions, not abandoning the pocket, getting deeper into the progressions, not just to 1 to 2 to 3, but getting to 4 and 5. And to do that, you got to feel the pressure of be able to create time and space in the pocket, be a pocket scientist. And that's what he's working on. He said he naturally steps up when he uses play action, but he doesn't naturally step up in the pocket with his straight drop back situation. And that leads to lazy footwork. He's got the golden arms. He can make all the throws. But when he steps up in the pocket, he naturally steps into those throws and avoids some of that lazy footwork and those lazy mechanics. And that's going to be big in this game because Don Week Martindale, we all know nobody is as blitz happy as him. He might be the blitz happiest defensive coordinator at the college or the pro level. And he's going to bring the pressure to Quinn. There were only 2 plays where Quinn saw pressure in that game versus Colorado State, guys. And they were the 2 worst plays he had, the interception and the sack. So let's extrapolate and assume Wink Martindale can provide more pressure, maybe 12 to 15 snaps. How's Quinn going to handle it? Is it going to be a bad play half the time, a sack or an interception or a negative play? If that's the case, that's a bad sign for Texas. So how Quinn handles pressure, that's what the scouts want to see, His pressure to sack rate last year was above 25%. That's something you gotta work on. They want to see how you handle pressure at the level, and you won't have a better situation this game against NFL players with an NFL defensive coordinator on the biggest stage.
You know, I saw this note earlier today, and I wish I could credit who I saw put it out there. This will be the largest crowd that UT will ever have played in front of. I don't know what the crowd was when they beat USC for the national title. I know that when they played Alabama over 100,000. Ohio State that year they won the national title was 105,000. So this will be the largest crowd they've ever played in front of. But Rod, my I guess memory is that UT and some of their greatest wins have been road games in some of the most difficult places to play, and even sometimes when they weren't very good.
That's interesting, because I'm with you. I feel like Texas will be ready for the big game, but Texas' problem is, you probably remember it like me, that sometimes they'll play to their competition.
Yes.
So that means rising to the occasion, right, for the big games, but it also means, hey, getting whipped by Iowa State and K-State a couple of times, because you don't play to a standard. So I agree with you there. I think they'll be ready for this game. If it's going back to Quinn's best games, guys, have been in big games. He was great in the Big 12 title game. He's been great in those Texas OU games. He's been great versus Alabama. I think he had a 90 Pro Football Focus passing grade versus Alabama in both of those years. He's been really good in those big games on the road. I agree. I think you get the best out of Stark in big games. Big game Stark is good because he's deep in his creative bag, and usually he comes out with a high pass rate, early game pass rate, and he leans on his creative innovation early on in the game to set a tone. And I think he'll do it again. He admitted, actually, and most coaches don't, even though they do, that he prepared for this game and in the offseason. Like, he was doing extra prep for it in the offseason, even baked some plays into training camp for the guys to prepare for Michigan. So Stark's going to be ready for them. He understands what this type of game did for the program when they beat Alabama. He wants to have the same type of momentum with a win over Michigan. Oh, and by the way, one quick thing, guys.
Yep.
He hired Scotty Hazelton. This was one of his special assistants he hired in the offseason, former defensive coordinator for Michigan State.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. And they hired him as a special assistant. He's been working with the nickelbacks all offseason long. That's going to be, I think, a huge advantage for Texas, too. They didn't go into this thing blind. They had familiarity with that Michigan staff and with that Michigan scheme.
That's very nice nugget. And that's what you can do these days. It's kind of like trading for a guy that was released by a team that you're about to play, because you never know what insight and some special nuggets you might get. Rod, it's great to have you on. Cannot wait to see that game. Look forward to it. Michigan, will they have that championship pride and maybe play a little bit better than we saw this past weekend in Texas and trying to win a game in front of the largest crowd they've ever played in front of? Rod, thank you very much for your time, and have fun this week.
Thanks, gentlemen. I appreciate you guys. Always a pleasure.
You too. Rod Babers on 5 hours on the Horn earlier in the day, and then also a part of Texas football as well as an analyst. When we come back, Jeff Traylor, UTSA, against a guy that he coached in high school, G.J. Kinney. Everyone knows that story, but the rivalry between UTSA and Texas State is also very, very it's a good one, and that's coming up Saturday. We'll discuss that with Jeff Traylor. That's next, and this is 365 Sports. How about $15,000 off a 2024 Ram 1500 Laramie Crew Cab pickup? Includes leather, heated seats, ventilated seats, 10 cup holders, 6 USB ports, 8-way power adjustable seats with lumbar support. Also, 395 horsepower, 410-pound-foot of torque, and LED lights, headlights, remote start, remote tailgate, and then also on top of that, $13,000 off the 2023 Last Call Dodge Charger. That's available. And the $7,000 off a 2023 Last Call Dodge Charger Scat Pack. All of that available and more. Over 400 vehicles, SUVs, trucks, and vehicles available at Allen Samuels, Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. Ted Teague, the general manager and CEO on Loop 340 east of 84 in Waco.
Get ready, Baylor fans. The ultimate game weekend experience awaits you at the Baylor Club. Kick off your weekend with our Friday Night Live pep rally. With live entertainment and special appearances from the Baylor Spirit Squad, it's the perfect way to start your game weekend with a roar. On Saturdays, don't miss our Knox Hall tailgate. Enjoy delicious food, ice-cold drinks, and great company as you gear up for the big game. And after the weekend's excitement, wrap it all up with our famous Bear brunches on Sundays. Don't wait. Make your game weekends legendary with the Baylor Club membership today.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
This is 365 Sports.
The Sikkim 365 app is brought to you by Allen Samuels Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat. Come by, let's be friends.
All right. 365 Sports will take you up until 6 o'clock tonight, 10:30. Emery Winter will take the 4 segments, the best segments, whether guests and or topics of discussion, and put them up on the local CW at 10:30. We're now joined by UTSA football coach and a great friend of the show, Jeff Traylor, with Paul Craig, David Smoak on 365 Sports. My God, we finally got you on Zoom. Are you the most handsome devil ever?
David, I think we're both way past the point of our prime, so I will take any compliment I can get. I appreciate it.
How intense is this rivalry with UTSA and Texas State, the proximity, and obviously the natural rivalry with a player you coached in high school?
It's what makes sports fun. Communities both are very excited about the game. They remind me a lot of us. You know, he got in there and he got a program going that hadn't been going. He's on that honeymoon ride right now. It's the best time of your life when you're in his spot. It reminds me of where we were in 21, where I had my whole team returning. I had a very good year our first year, exceeded a lot of expectations, and it's just nice when you have that many players returning. He's got 18 starters back. He got the Sun Belt Player of the Year to come in at quarterback. And, you know, he hasn't been doing it long enough yet, David, to know the honeymoon does end. But he's enjoying it right now, and I couldn't be more thrilled for my buddy to be enjoying his honeymoon ride right now.
Now, I'm assuming this is the first time this has happened to you at UTSA where you've played a player, you've coached against a player that you coached in high school. Did it ever happen in high school when you were there where you coached against somebody who you'd coached?
Yeah, it did as an assistant, but never as a head coach. GJ was the first one, obviously, last year. I know personally I do not enjoy this because of our relationship. There's nothing worse than when you play one of your best friends in this business, which happens more than when you play one of your former players, much less your high school quarterback, much less the situation he went through with his father.
Yep.
And then him basically coming to me, and despite what everybody says, which David knows is better than anybody, we did not recruit GJ. GJ really wanted to come play for us. His father really wanted to put him somewhere that he felt would be good for somebody to take care of GJ. GJ was in a tough state of mind back then. His pops had just been shot. Yes. You can imagine what G was like when I got him, and you can imagine why that's formed such an unbreakable relationship. Little did I know we were going to end up coaching together at SMU, coaching together at Arkansas, and that I'd be one of the people speaking on his behalf for him to get the UIW job and to speak on his behalf to get that Texas State job.
What was it like, that conversation you had? Was it in person? Was it on the phone when he was at Canton and eventually was going to come to Gilmer? What was that conversation like?
It was never with GJ. It was only with his dad.
Okay.
I was really against it. I had a returning quarterback named Jamel Kennedy that I was very fond of.
Mm-hmm.
I told Gary Joe that I didn't know how good this was going to go. And Gary Joe point blank told me, that this is where he wanted his son to be. And if GJ couldn't beat out Jamel, then he didn't need to come be a college quarterback. And I told him, let's meet the Dairy Queen, which, that's what got me down there at UIL, because you're not supposed to talk to those kids before they get enrolled in school. But I was really trying to make sure they knew I wasn't going to just hand him the job. So we met the Dairy Queen, which became a huge topic through all the years. And people can believe what they want to believe. That's exactly what happened. And GJ came, and believe it or not, Jamel Kennedy ended up having a rotator surgery or a labrum surgery. I don't remember which one. We moved Jamel to slot, and GJ did a great job quarterbacking. His family, lived in Gilmer all those years. And the only thing G never has done is win a state championship as a high school quarterback. And I used to tell his brother McLean in the 6th grade, I told McLean, this is the only thing you can do, Bubba, is win a state championship that your brother hadn't done. And McLean was the last quarterback that won us that last state championship when I was at Gilmer in 2014.
By the way, meeting at the Dairy Queen for a meeting in high school is the most Texas thing that might have ever happened to you, Coach.
Well, literally, I asked G this week. I texted him. I said, how many Whataburgers with cheese? He's a double Whataburger guy.
Yeah.
Milkshakes have you had this week? We agreed we're just going to skip the game. I'm going to meet him at the Whataburger. And we're going to crush it and let our assistants handle the game. That's how it turned out.
Coach, you got the win in the opener, 28-16. I know that there were some things that did not go the way that you probably would have liked. Special teams, I know, was a little bit of a hairy situation. But just in general, to get that first game under your belt, how'd you feel about your Roadrunners, and what'd you kind of learn seeing them in live action for the first time?
It's a really good point. All those things are very fair. I know I coach at a really good place when you win a college football game against an FBS opponent, and our fans are unhappy. Mm-hmm. My players are unhappy. My assistant coaches are unhappy, and the head coach is unhappy. We did not play as well as we were capable of. Defensively, we were fantastic. We did turn the running back loose once. We turned the tight end loose once. Other than that, we were perfect pretty much. Very proud of that. Offensively, the first 46 snaps, we were pretty good. And those last 40 were really hard to watch. Is that conditioning? Is that physical toughness? Is that mental toughness? Is that Kennesaw being better coaches than us? That's what we got to work out. Special teams wise, it was our specialists that weren't good, and that's shocking because I've got really good specialists. I believe that'll fix itself, but that's kind of where we are, and it's really good to be 1-0 and angry.
Jeff, how much have you changed after? And you don't have many. My God, you don't have many. But when you lose a game, or in this case, I'm not saying you did, because you're kind of talking like it was a disappointment, which is a great compliment to the program. How much do you stay up at night, or are you able to just kind of not clear it, but get to bed and then start getting into it on Sunday?
I've learned I'm not going to sleep anyway the night of the game. I sleep really well on Friday nights. I'm different than most people, which you can attest to that very dearly. I know, David. I sleep well on Friday night because I really have done my very absolute best, and I am exhausted, and I sleep well. I do not sleep a wink on Saturday night because my adrenaline just rushes so much. So I go ahead and put the bed, I grade it that night by myself at home. And you can imagine grading the entire game. My special teams coordinator grades special teams, defense, offense. But when you're the head coach and you grade every play, that's probably, a 6-hour adventure at minimum. And I'm not grading every player, don't get me wrong, but I'm grading the things that stick out. So, that's 6 hours, but I'm not going to sleep anyway. But I feel way better on Sunday. I'm just exhausted. And then usually, Monday, we're game planning the whole day. I was in the office at 2 a.m. Tuesday morning, and that's my best time because we get in about 5 a.m. and I got 3 hours by myself. And I feel good when I'm by myself watching video and grading video, because when the people get here and you're the head coach, everybody wants 5 minutes, and 5 minutes always turns into 50.
Jeff Traylor, UTSA football coach, with us on 365 Sports. Is that one of the hardest parts about being a head coach, is everybody wants 5 minutes with you, and you have to learn how to kind of juggle that?
Especially with my personality, just because I love people so much. I want everybody to feel valued. I want everybody to understand the head coach cares about them. So with my personality, it's kind of like your greatest strength, your greatest weakness. I love people, and I got to be wise and smart, but I want the people to know that I'm accessible, and I want to do what's best for those guys.
Jeff Traylor with us, UTSA football coach. They play at Texas State on Saturday.
What is it like when you have those quiet times where you're in film and you find, because those are the times where you might be, man, I'm really going to drill down and I can't figure out why this is happening, where you do have that moment alone and you can't wait to write it down and goes, guys, I finally figured this out. This is what we're going to do. Is that like a relief? Is it especially starting your day when people are coming in? How is it? How do you react to those?
I always wonder what my assistants think when they wake up at 4:30 and they see there's 168 texts on the group text chain of me grading video all night, giving my assessments. I can imagine what they wake up to, and just seeing all those texts is kind of a running joke around the facility of what that's like. I don't think you ever quite figure it out. And I know that's not what you guys want to hear, and my fan base wants to hear either. It's always a work in progress. You're always trying to figure out, was it the scheme? Was the other team better than we thought? Is it conditioning? Was it strength staff in the summer? Was it nutrition? What did I not do a good job? There's just so many things. I don't know that we ever quite figured out. In my career, it's historically we're okay and pretty good in September, and we're really, really good in October, November, and December. So I think we're good at figuring stuff out. I just somehow got to become a better camp coach, I guess. Now I say that, and we're 3-2 in openers. We did win the first year against a Texas State team, and then we beat Illinois, lost 2 crushing games to Houston back to back, and won this one. So I'm probably being a little hard on myself, but I do think in today's time, you've got to gather the information about all the transfer portals and how your team's different. That's why there's so many crazy things happening week 1. That's what I still hadn't quite got a grip on. We got a new left tackle. We got a new right tackle. I know y'all don't care. We got a new center. We got a new quarterback. We got 2 new receivers. Just a lot of new. And I've got to do a better job when we get out the gate game 1.
Coach, what was your impressions of using the headsets for the first time, having that ability to communicate in game? I imagine it's kind of different for everybody, but what was it like for the Roadrunners?
We snap it so fast, it's really nothing for us.
Okay.
We're rolling, so we're not going to be one of those teams that slows it down. We're going to go faster. But late in the game when we had a 2-score lead, it was good for me not have to holler out there to Owen to snap the ball at 1, and I had to give a hand signal. You know what I mean? We could just tell him on the headsets we're going 4-minute mode, which means snap the ball at 1. That was nice. So, the teams we're playing against, they snapped it under 15, so we couldn't talk to our linebackers anyway because they were going under the 15, if that makes sense what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Jeff, you mentioned the transfer portal and all that. Is it harder to have camaraderie or team chemistry because things are so much in flux, even if you have a lot of players coming back, because it's such in flux now?
No doubt. I couldn't agree more. Just because you don't have time on task with these men, and you've got to develop a relationship, and trust is everything to me. I mean, I got to know about a guy when I look into his eyes, and I want him to know about me. And you just got to go through some battles before you get that relationship tested. It's no different than a marriage, no different than families, friendships. It just, there's a reason Kurt Traylor and I are so close. We fought a ton in our lives, and we trust each other. I mean, Matt Turner and I have been coaching together since 1993. I've got so many 5-year players. It's amazing. So our culture is great. It's fantastic. I just don't ever want to be a situation where it's his guys and those guys.
Yep.
We are all the road runners, and it just takes time to get there. And we're close, but we're not there yet. I think G has a pretty good handle on me there because he has so many more starters returning than I do. But we're bonding closely. But to your point, it's going to take a little more time to get it where I want it, to play championship football. And we hope we're getting there. We got to take huge steps this week for us to even have a chance this week. I will say that.
All right, so you mentioned the portal, and Paul, we had GJ on earlier in the week, and how he just loves talking about you two and the relationship as coaches, but also formerly in high school. You are two of the programs that probably try to get rated more than anybody. Obviously, the FBS schools and what you guys do, Group of Five, whatever the hell you want to call it, but these are two programs that have been able to get in the portal, but also are always fighting people. Are you still losing ground on that from where your perspective, and it's still a lot of work to be done?
It's worse now than ever because now all those guys are going to get to spend $20 to $22 million, and that's factual. That's not even counting what their collectives are going to do. And we've got our collectives up pretty good, but probably 1/20th of the number I just mentioned. And I mean, how am I going to keep McEwen and McCowan and my young, really great players now that they can go up to 95 scholarships or 105, whatever they want to do? I think it's going to get a lot harder. I don't know what our school is going to do as far as what that number is going to look like yet. I know they're working on that, but we're recruiting that next year's class now. So it's tough, David. I know I've got to be more into the future thinking, but I work really hard to keep this team, and I don't want to lose this team. So I'm just going to love them the best I can right now, and I'll worry about all that, in January, to be very honest with you. But we've been blessed. We've only lost 3 players since we've been here, and we've had kids turn down large numbers to stay and play for us. We just got to get the number closer. I know we'll never be able to get to that number, but we've got to get it where it's enough our guys will stay and play and feel like they're appreciated.
Let me ask you a question. You have been the dog, and you've also worked at some powerful places, Texas, Arkansas, et cetera. If you could sit down with some of the other schools, the whatever they call them, the Autonomy 4, et cetera, and have a conversation with some of those coaches, do you think they would even care what you had to say?
It's always the person you're talking to. There are still some guys that are about the game, but there's also a lot of guys that they're only about their situation. And I don't really blame them because I understand how cutthroat this business is. And it's sad, but it's the truth. We've got to come up with some way. I don't have the answers for that right now, honestly, but we've got to come up with some way because I know that like last year, David, I was so scared of it that I didn't even want to play some of my young guys. And this year I just said to myself, it's not right. If they deserve to play and they deserve the ball, put them out there. We'll worry about that in December and January. And we'll just be for the kid. And that's what we're going to do.
How emotional, last thing, thanks for your time today as always. How emotional will it be? You guys will shake hands and see each other, you and GJ, prior to the game. No matter what happens, how emotional would that post-game handshake be if you win or not with GJ?
It's the worst. It's the worst. I mean, on one hand, I'm his former coach, and he's like a son to me. So I know it'd be a huge win for him and his fan base, and for me, it would just be hard. And obviously, if we go down, that would be tough for many reasons. But I'd find some solace in knowing that it's going to really help him and his career. But selfishly, for being my fans and my players, I hope GJ has that feeling and not me. He's got a lot of years left in his old tank. I can at least see, in the next 15 years, I'm going home. He's got to go good another 25 or 30.
Man, love talking to you. Good to see you, Jeff. Good luck. Thanks for your time as always. We appreciate you a lot.
Y'all are the best, David. Thank y'all. God bless. Birds up.
Chef Traylor, Birds Up, Roadrunners, UTSA, and Texas State in San Marcos. And UTSA has had a lot of success against Texas State over the years. And Jeff, you got to kind of sometimes be able to not read between the lines. It's who he is. Sometimes he's got some comedian in him, and sometimes it's just raw. This is exactly the way it is. But one thing about him, he's done an incredible job in San Antonio and is a hell of a football coach, too.
Yeah, I can't wait to see every year what the future holds for them because, we're such big fans of his. And, he's really a fantastic, fantastic coach that I hope the rest of the country knows about.
Oh, they do.
I know the football people do, but I want fans to.
Yeah.
I would like fans to get to know, UTSA and Texas State for that matter. We get two really good coaches there, and what a heck of a game. So, I'm thinking about Scott Drew and Jerome Tang right now in that kind of thing where they hate it. I thought they would get to a point where they like it, where it's like fun, but there's so much pressure. There's so much stuff. They hate playing each other.
Yeah, no question. Craig, anything else?
It's ought to be a heck of a game. I mean, I always enjoy hearing Jeff talk, and whenever he's on this show, it's always pretty enlightening and entertaining. And appreciate GJ joining us yesterday. And those two guys are really good at what they do, among the best. And I think in some ways, even though Jeff's been around a really long time, he's still kind of just getting started, or at least that's the way it feels with that program. And I know huge things are ahead for him, and obviously huge things are ahead for GJ as well. But that is a weird dynamic to have to play through for both of them personally, but it's part of the deal, especially when you make friends and you got a lot of friends around the game. Eventually you're going to run into each other. But that is a very unique and special bond that they have compared to a lot of other head coaching matchups that you're going to see this year. So that makes this interesting, but the proximity, the history, and just the fact they're two good football teams. I think Texas State's like maybe a 1-point favorite last I looked at home. So people are expecting a close game, and I think UTSA had a good debut, but your expectations are so high for them now that it's not even winning. It's like you got to win and look good doing it. And they didn't always look good last week because they had some special teams, just miscues, nothing that's not correctable. The defense was really good, as he mentioned, and there's some things to just continue cleaning up offensively, like you mentioned, like later in that game. But yeah, on the other side, I mean, Texas State, go and bring Jordan McLeod in as your quarterback, and you've got Ishmael Mahdi coming back, who's one of the best but probably least well-known players in the entire country for how good he is. Like, all-purpose yards leader in all of FBS, I believe it was, if not beyond that, but FBS for sure. He was right there at the very top of the list in all-purpose yards. So, Texas State's got some weapons and a really fun offense, but Jeff knows that, and that ought to make for a hell of a matchup.
He's been, by the way, McLeod at USF, Arizona, James Madison, where he had a monster year with 3,400 yards and 32 touchdowns in 2023, and now at Texas State. When we come back, Zach Gelb, CBS Radio National Sports Show. He will join us on college football and more, and this is 365 Sports. IdealMRI.com. Friday morning, 8:30, I'll be inside their state-of-the-art machine, the imaging machine, to get a look at my lower lumbar and also my right hip. It's I look forward to it because I've been able to have some work done, but I don't know if it's arthritis. I don't know if it's something in my lower back. I don't know if there's something structural in my right hip, and I'm tired of it because it just won't go away, and so I'm going to get it looked at. Ideal MRI, $497 or less. Of course, I am at that age where I have Medicare, so it's even better. But $497 when the average MRI is $1,100 is a wonderful deal. And so I'll be there Friday morning. Didn't take long. They called me. My doctor, Dr. Ackley, set it up. Wanted to see a better look, and so that's what we do. I'll get the imaging and results and diagnosis by the end of the day. IdealMRI.com.
Baylor alumni are more than 160,000 strong. When we all join hands to support our university, we don't just move the needle, We move mountains. Working together, we create life-changing opportunities for students on the field, in the classroom, in the laboratory, and in life for generations to come. So get connected, get involved, learn how at Baylor.edu/alumni. The way he plays the game. There is no doubt in my mind he'll continue to excel.
Midway Athletics and UBO Business Services are two names that exude winning. From Midway's top Central Texas Star test scores to college-like extracurricular facilities and UBO Business Services' industry-leading customer service scores, you can trust in these two winning programs. Best of luck to Coach Joe Gillespie.
You guys hear me all right?
And look at your sticker on your office equipment. If it does not say UBO, call Midway Class of 2020, Duff, Daxon, Dane, or Sean Hunt at 254-709-2101 or ubeo.com.
Our good friend Brad Boozer, Boozer's Jewelers here at 365 Sports. Now, Brad, people who watch and listen to our show know I'm a double-time customer for you, engagement ring and wedding band, and you guys do that great, but that's not all you do at Boozer's Jewelers.
Absolutely. And I always like to say, it's a new year. It's a great way to start the year out. Go through your old jewelry. Go through your wife's jewelry box. Go through anything you're maybe not wearing, something that's broken, something that you're not using. We do a massive amount of custom work. We can take your old jewelry, old diamonds, old watches, and we can convert it into something special for you and make a one-of-a-kind piece of jewelry. And if that's not something you're interested in, a great thing is we can turn that into cash. So we buy gold, we buy diamonds, we'll buy Rolex watches, any kind of heirloom jewelry, anything that's maybe passed down to you.
Boozer's Jewelers, where do they find you, Brad?
We're at 1025 North Valley Mills Drive, right on the corner of Lake Air Drive and Valley Mills with the big clock on the corner.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. This segment is brought to you by Busch Light, the sound of refreshment, the coldest and smoothest light lager there is. Find Busch Light near you.
Zach Gelb, CBS Sports Radio, national talk show host who we got to know back when Matt Rule was hired, when he covered Matt at Temple and, of course, now at Nebraska. One of the games we'll discuss with him. Zach, great to have you. We appreciate it. You mentioned you had Boise State head coach Danielson on the show, and that's one of the games we wanted to talk with you about. There's others, but your thoughts, Boise State with Ashton Jeanty, and then, of course, Oregon that just kind of looked blah in their game one and their opener.
Well, first off, thanks for having me. Secondly, I'll take some of that beer that you guys are promoting in terms of payment. So send that my way to my New York City apartment because I could use a few definitely this weekend with all the football I have to watch. Spencer Danielson is a young up-and-coming coach. Very impressed with him. He reminds me a lot like Dan Lanning, just with when he walks into a room, he overtakes the room, or he walks onto a Zoom, he overtakes the Zoom because of the energy that he displays. Ashton Jeanty was the story there with the 6 touchdowns, and he had more rushing yards than what BC has as a team, and we all know what BC did up against Florida State. Oregon did not look like a top 5 team in the country when they did go up against Idaho, but I kind of chalked that up. All right, it's week 1. You're going up against an inferior opponent. They did win the game, so I expect them to be much better in week 2, but if they play like they did in week 1, they will not beat Boise State. And Dylan Gabriel, high expectations for him. So you would think that they will look better in week 2 and get back to the Oregon Ducks that we thought we were going to get going into this season.
Zach, do you think that Boise State has enough defense at all to contain Oregon like Idaho was magically able to?
Probably not, is what I would say. That's definitely the biggest question in terms of the Boise State side going into this one. I know there's a little quarterback concern maybe with Boise State, but we know what that offense is capable of. But what was lost in the Boise State game was how many points they did allow. And we know they're going up against a much better opponent in Oregon this week. So I would probably lean on the side of that Boise State doesn't have enough on the defensive side of the ball.
Zach, DJ Uiagalelei is one of the big talking points in college football this week after the Noles 0-2 start. Here's a guy who, you cover the NFL. You know how the talk is surrounding different prospects and whatnot. But, man alive, just what are your thoughts on what we've seen unfold in Tallahassee these first couple games.
What a disaster. And there's some people saying, oh, Mike Norvell needs to lose his job. That's ridiculous. This is just a transfer portal and NIL now. Some years you will hit, some years you will not. We all got fooled going into this season. I do believe that Norvell is a good coach, but when you look at this year, what a disaster this has been. You lose to Georgia Tech, and they didn't trust DJ Uiagalelei in that game. And then late in the game, he finally played well, but then the defense allows the score, and they end up losing to Georgia Tech. And you think, okay, easy bounce back spot against Boston College, 12-team college football playoff now. You'll be fine. And then Boston College just bullied you, led by Bill O'Brien and him being a first-time head coach at Boston College. We know he had stops at Penn State and obviously the NFL with the Texans as a head man. But this goes back to DJ Uiagalelei. Really, that's the big talking point. Remember that game where he filled in for Trevor Lawrence with COVID, Clemson, Notre Dame? He looked like he was going to be a rock star. And then a lot of it was Dabo to blame in Clemson. And Dabo has his own issues, and he's not adapting to what college football is anymore. But I give some credit to Jonathan Smith, who's now at Michigan State, with what he did with DJ Uiagalelei last year. But this guy has to be, in DJ Uiagalelei, maybe one of the more overhyped college quarterbacks ever, because he was supposed to be great, gave us a little tease, and just has never been able to find that magic again.
Michigan in the big house, 110,000, where they're, of course, coming off the national title, but there are still some dark clouds and transition, and Harbaugh's gone, and Texas, that looks like they're loaded against that great Michigan front. Your thoughts about that one?
Yeah, on paper, this suggests that Texas is going to win, and Texas is going to win big. The only reservation I have is that, because Michigan is a 7.5-point underdog. I don't think Michigan is going to win the game, but I think because of their defense, they could keep it close, and maybe they will cost some people some money if you end up electing to plus the 7.5 points on Michigan, because I think it opened up at 4, now it's already up to 7.5. I think most are on the Texas Longhorns, but that offense is going to be a huge question. Like Michigan, to me, they don't have as much talent offensively as Ohio State had last year, but they kind of remind me like Ohio State last year, where they're not good enough to win a national championship, but they will win games because of their defense. It's offensively, what are you going to get out of the quarterback? The offensive line has to be better. Donovan Edwards, I know he had a great national championship game up against Washington, but he had a bad year last year. He needs to get back to Donovan Edwards from 2 years ago. But all offseason long, I thought Orji was going to be the quarterback. And then I was in Vegas 2 weeks ago, and I was talking to John Jansen. He's like, I don't think it's going to be Orji. I think it's going to be Davis Warren. And it was Davis Warren. But I think there's more upside to Orji, but clearly they don't trust him to throw the football enough, as we've seen so far in his short career in Ann Arbor. So, yes, I think Texas will win the game, but I believe it will be a little bit closer than what people expect.
This is kind of another, weird thing for an offseason. Usually a team wins a national championship, you can count a lot coming back. They lost a ton to the NFL, including their coach. They have this world of conflict kind of around them. How much do you think that does affect these current Michigan Wolverines, that the coaches are gone, a lot of the players are gone, but a lot of the questions and the conflict still kind of remain outside of it?
Yeah, so last year, I get a lot of Michigan players on my show, and I give credit to the university. Once the Stallion stuff happened, they didn't stop giving us players. And the players openly talked about it, from Chris Jenkins to Blake Corum, to Colston Loveland, to Roman Wilson, to Moore, the corner, like Will Johnson. I've talked to these guys about it extensively. So not having some of those guys there, I do think is big. But I don't think what happened last year in terms of the scandal and what's going to be the aftermath of the scandal is really impacting this team. It's just that they lost a lot of talent, and I don't think this is a bad team. I still think this could be a 9-win football team or so. They're going to be good, but when they win, it's going to be ugly. And there will be some ugly wins this year, but you'd rather win those games than compared to have ugly performances and be on the losing side of it.
Zach, I think most everybody can agree that Dabo Swinney's approach to the transfer portal is a bit archaic, and it's maybe even starting to cost them some games. I think to overreact a little bit to Georgia, is probably not the right thing to do given how good they are. Where do you stand on Dabo, Clemson, and just where they are in modern college football right now?
Yeah, 3 years ago, I don't think there was a national talk show host in the country that got more dragged for saying Dabo's arrogance is going to be a part of his demise than me. I was called every name in the book on these Clemson message boards. Now I'll just say, how do you like me now? Pretty much. What I thought going into this game, and let's be real, Georgia played like a B- game. They weren't even at their best. When that was 0-0 at the end of the first quarter, I'm like, hammer, Georgia. Even at 6-0 at halftime, Georgia, you could tell, is just that much better. So I get your point. It's tough to trash a coach after losing to Georgia because outside of Nick Saban in the SEC championship game last year, no one is basically able to figure out Georgia the last few years with Kirby Smart. But it shows you that Clemson is no longer elite. Clemson is no longer great. They could still be a good program. But until Dabo adapts with the times, and he says he will, but he never does, he makes fun of NIL, right? The name, image, and likeness of God in the transfer portal, and that's what his program was built off of. But you don't see any change. That arrogance is what made Clemson better than what anyone could have expected with Dabo there. But the standard that he built was to win national championships. I'm not saying you expect that each and every year, but I can't take them as a serious national championship contender ever again until Dabo says, okay, I'm going to actually be a coach here in what college football is now, because he's failing to do so. Like, look at Coach K. When he was at Duke, he didn't want to take one and dones, finally did so, Jalil Okafor, and then they end up winning a national championship. The great ones adapt, and in football, out of all the sports, that's where the adjustments need to be made more than any of them, and Dabo's failed to do so.
I'm not so sure, and Craig and Paul can also add along with Zach. I thought I heard a soundbite from Dabo from maybe it was yesterday or this week's coach's media session, and he talked about, you're all going to write that, but it's not going to affect me. No, it does. He hears all of that, so he's not telling the truth.
Smokey, this is a man that is not even taking phone calls now on his coach's show. So don't tell me you could write what you want and you're not impacted by it. Bullcrap. Or as Deion Sanders would say, bull junk.
Yeah. Well, speaking of Deion, our good friend Matt Rule at home in Lincoln, boy, they need a nice win in Lincoln. It's been forever. Colorado beat them up last year. Your thoughts about the Huskers and Buffaloes?
Yeah, you guys know me. I love Matt. I love what they're building at Nebraska, and I thought going into this year that this was an 8-win team. I know the Mahomes comparisons are easy with Dylan Raiola to Patrick Mahomes because they look like one another, and Mahomes has played into it, and so is Dylan Raiola. But look at some of those throws. The one down the right sideline was awesome. I thought the sidearm throw was even better, but this is a huge game for Matt Rule. I know everyone's going to talk Raiola, Shedeur Sanders, Coach Prime, Travis Hunter. This is a statement victory in year 2 for Matt Rule in Lincoln to show that there has been a big improvement from last year. And you know this, Smokey, that team last year should have been a bowl team. And they had some of the worst quarterback play that I've ever seen. Even some of the Chicago Bears are offended by the quarterback play that they saw last year. Now they have the legitimate quarterback. They're good in the trenches. I like Nebraska to win the game, but Matt has to win this game.
Yeah, they've in the past few years, and whether it was Scott Frost or even Mike Riley, or in this case, Matt, they've hyperventilated instead of just going to play football, which is something he's been working on. You've seen some of the videos in the offseason or during August. Just go play the game and stop worrying about the outside stuff that's out there, that are around you.
Yeah, and a source tells me that he's very annoyed at you that you have not attended Lincoln yet.
No, I know.
And that he's not even talking to you.
No, first of all, but people don't know. First of all, he's not coming on until I go there, which means you may not get him on this year. But then Zach doubled down, sent Matt a text with me included, and said,
"Did I do that? Did I stir the pot?"
No, it was you. It was absolutely you, and I deserve that. It's hard to imagine that I haven't done that, and I would love to be able to. I'm sitting there looking at a high school schedule, what Baylor's doing. What I need to do is just not do the high school game, not cover Baylor, and go to Lincoln and pick one where, my God, I hope that they win.
No one's stopping you.
No
one's stopping you.
I know.
Zach,
well, he's going to start blaming the hip, right? I heard that MRI read on the
way in.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. Zach, for Deion Sanders in Colorado, they're clearly increased talent-wise this year. They're deeper than they were, but they still stylistically are all finesse, and their offense isn't really much more than Shedeur. Let's go make this up as we go. And that's kind of surprised me from Pat Shurmur, who is, a longtime NFL coach. Is what they're doing right now sustainable enough to get them to 6 or 7 wins?
They could get to 6. I predicted before the year that they're going to fall short and they're only going to get 5. Like North Dakota State, I thought was an easy bet in week 1, plus the points. I thought Colorado would win the game. Shador is going to be a top 10 pick. Travis Hunter is going to be a top 10 pick. Horn is a really good wide receiver. The kid Seaton could be a good offensive lineman. We know what the hype is. Here are my concerns, though. The run defense improved from what I saw in week 1. The rest of the defense, though, is not great. And also on the offensive side of the ball, it was weird at the end of the game. You could say Shador was improving, but you would think then you trust your offensive line and you run the football. Instead, they were throwing it and gave North Dakota State some time back. I just look at that team. They're going to have 2 top 10 picks, and there's a legitimate chance that they don't make a bowl game this year, which I don't know the stats on that. I'm going to assume that's never been done before in the history of the sport. They are better, but like on the offensive line, they were so bad last year. So even if you say you got better and you improved on the offensive line, did you become a good offensive line? After week 1, I would say no. Nebraska should get home, and then you're just going to have Shador be basically Superman and try to turn garbage into gold.
Well, he's unbelievable. He really, really, really is. Zach, last thing, since the NFL season does start tomorrow night, one quick note on the NFL. Is it Kansas City and everybody else?
Yeah, until the Chiefs go down, it's the Chiefs against the rest of the league. Now, Joe Burrow needs to stay healthy. We've seen Joe Burrow and the Bengals take down the Chiefs in the AFC Championship game a few years ago. We'll see what Rodgers does with the Jets. I'm not a believer in Tua and Miami to take down the Chiefs in a big spot. We'll see if Lamar and Derrick Henry can be a big threat. But I look at the Chargers. I don't think the Chargers are going to be good this year. But for future years, we need Herbert and Harbaugh to be great together. Because look at the Patriots' great run of dominance inside the AFC East. Forget about the rest of the NFL. No one legitimately challenged them consistently in the division. We need the Chargers to be good in that division to try to, some years, actually pose a threat to Kansas City just inside their division for starters. And then in the NFC is getting better, man. The Niners we know are going to be really good. The Eagles will bounce back after their dreadful collapse. The Lions are good. The Packers are a solid football team. The Bears are going to be good. I think the Cowboys are going to miss the playoffs this year. But I'll say this. I like the Rams. I don't think enough people are talking about the Rams because Donald is retired. That offense, as long as the line can hold up, is absolutely loaded with talent.
Hey, man, it's fantastic, Zach. We look forward to this weekly segment with you. You and I. You reached back out to me. You've been on with us before. We've known you for a while. Great to have you on. Great to have you on with the knowledge and the guests that you get. Thank you for your time and have a great rest of your week.
Yeah, now I know I get free MRIs and beers by doing this segment. So you'll have me for 365 days out of the year.
Absolutely, man. We will send it that way. Zach Gelb, CBS Sports Radio, national talk show host, and now a part of 365 Sports on Wednesdays in the 5 o'clock hour. Man, I love it. Love his passion. Yeah. And also, man, he'd get guests from all over the place. I mean, Michigan players and Coach Danielson, Boise State, et cetera. So that's great, too.
Look, getting loaded up and getting it on Busch Light and getting him an MRI is something that Emory's done several times.
Yeah, I might have to do that. I might have to do that before the MRI just because I get a little bit nervous about being any kind of a place where you are basically constrained. When we come back, our look at pod number 4 and the 4 new schools in the Big 12 this week and a little bit of what they did last week. Utah, Colorado, Arizona, and Arizona State. They went 4-0. That's next, and this is 365 Sports.
Richard Carr, Buick GMC Cadillac, they are the people that you can count on and the people that many in Central Texas have counted on for a really long time now, over 2 decades in business. And over that time, they have brought to you award-winning customer service. They brought to you great offers on vehicles, whether that be new or pre-owned. And they've got all of that in store for you right now over at Richard Carr. Take advantage of their big savings on cars and trucks at the Kickoff to Savings event as they celebrate the return of football. And what better vehicle to go out to a stadium and enjoy some tailgating and just traveling across country or whatever it is you're looking to do. What better than the GMC Sierra? It's got a multi-pro tailgate. It's got a first-class interior, and it's got the power to get any job done. GMC Sierra is the truck for Texans who want to drive the best. And right now you can save $9,000 on all 2024 GMC Sierra SLT trucks in stock with a 2010 or newer trade-in for qualified buyers. You can find Sierra trucks under $40,000, and they've got plenty of details over at the dealership for you if you want to learn more. But if you're looking for some value and confidence, and you're also happening to be looking for a pre-owned car or truck, they've got plenty of options for you there as well. If you don't want to go the new route with the Sierra as well, their lot's loaded with 100 quality pre-owned cars and trucks of different varieties, all priced to move, and their goal, as always, is 100% credit approval. So visit the dealership, visit the website, give them a phone call, and get more information on the variety of great deals going on right now during the Kickoff to Savings event. Richard Carr Motors. Visit them over off Highway 60 Imperial Exit or at richardcarr.com.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses. When it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Cam Heathcott, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why we take the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Cam Heathcott in Conroe at 936-756-7717. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Let Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
Is your car ready for a makeover? Get ready to fall in love with your ride again at City Tire and Battery. City Tire and Battery is family owned and has provided expert service with top quality products since 1942. And with financing available, there's no reason to put off those much needed upgrades. Give your car the love it deserves and go see City Tire and Battery, located at 1502 South Valley Mills in Waco.
When we moved to Texas, we were like fish out of water. We didn't know anyone in our neighborhood until our Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent came to the house. She was so helpful and reassuring, a friendly face with that Texan hospitality I'd heard about. When we purchased a Texas Farm Bureau insurance policy, we knew we were making the right choice. We knew our family would be protected.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 5 o'clock hour is brought to you by Edward Jones and financial advisor Cam Heathcott. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
Sogi. Here we go, our pod. Big 12, 4, Arizona, Arizona State, Utah, and Colorado. This is what we take 4 teams at a time. And then also in that time, look at who they have coming up and also a couple of notes about them. And we have discussed Utah in length with, what are you laughing about?
That was a meme.
You should have just not said anything and see how long that was going to go.
How long it was going to go. Yeah, because you were reading papers, you were leaning back.
I was prepping for this segment that I didn't know it was already ready to go.
Yeah. Doing that.
You know, one thing, I've only done this a couple of times, but I am always usually back by the time the show starts. And that was basically, I wasn't mentally back.
Yeah.
As far as the segments. All right, here we go. We'll start with Utah. We've mentioned them with Stephenson Sylvester joined us earlier, but man, I just love the way they play. They host Baylor. I just love the way they play, who they are, their identity, and everything about them. And they host Baylor at 2:30 on Saturday.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really tough for Baylor to contain or match the physicality that Utah has. It's going to be a tough place to play. Look, they haven't been great on the road or at home the last couple of years, so it's even hard to see what they're going to be there. I think they'll play okay. I think that Utah is just so much better than Baylor. And, like Southern Utah, you can't really judge anything on that. But if Cam Rising can move around like he did and Brant Keithy doesn't look like anything happened and that they're completely healthy, they're going to be tough to beat for anybody. And, this is just going to be a tough game for Baylor. I think Utah's going to be one of the class teams of the country. And, we'll get a good view of Baylor and where they really stand compared to a super talented team early on. But, I really like Utah and what they can do.
I mean, I think Utah's a good team. I think it remains to be seen how good they are. They beat Southern Utah. So what? That's not anything that was unexpected. They were a favorite coming into the year, so they went and they handled their business against the team they should have handled their business against. And now we'll see what they look like in week 2. It was very encouraging seeing what you saw, but, I think this idea of they're just going to destroy people remains to be seen. And that very well could happen this weekend, but I don't think we know nearly enough about Baylor to know that for sure, which we'll talk about them in a different pod. But we do know Utah's good. Just how much better they are than other teams in the league, that's what we'll find out over these coming weeks. But, I expect them to win this weekend. They looked really good a week ago. And just to see Keithy and Rising, that's probably getting tiring hearing of just them all the time. Dijon Stanley had a great game. Defense was good. There's a lot to like there beyond those two. But obviously, since we hadn't seen those two in so long, it was important to see them, just like it was important to see Jalen Daniels for Kansas and just see what he looked like playing. And they passed that test with flying colors. They're 2 touchdown favorites. So I understand the perception of them being so good, but I don't think anybody has any clue of how, where Baylor is, good, bad, or otherwise. It's impossible to know based on last week, especially how they stack up with the Utah. So this will be a great game from an informative standpoint on both sides. And I do think that Utah will win this game, and I think that they'll just move on along as one of the favorites, and rightfully so.
I was on a station in Salt Lake City earlier in the week, and they asked me about what Baylor, and they're either high or they're low. Now, they had the team 2 years ago that just faded down the stretch and then no-showed for the game with Air Force 6-7. That could have been like an 8-4 team. But it's right. They're either 1-11 or they're 12-2. Or, the teams that go to a Big 12 championship game and lose to Georgia in the Sugar Bowl. They had that really good run back in the early 2000s, that 2010s, that kind of carried over. But they have been a roller coaster, and I have no idea who they are. You disagree?
I disagree. They were 6-7 2 years ago.
I just mentioned that.
Oh, yeah. You're talking about high or low, though. That's right down the middle.
No, I said they're either high or low. That team in 2022 could have been like an 8-4 but they fell apart.
Matt Rule had a 7-6 team in year 2. So, I know what you mean. But, I think it's more of they're not high or low. They're just anywhere. They've been everywhere is where they've been over the last decade. It's impossible to know for sure. And I sure as hell don't know. I mean, I'm not convinced of anything other than I think they're improved. And, last year, neither starting quarterback played. So it's, and that Baylor's starting quarterback's not even back this year. So it's just, it's hard to tell. And that's why these early games are so great, is to give us some more evidence. And, if Baylor goes up there and gets blown out, then, that'll be something to talk about. But I'm very intrigued. I definitely think Utah's the rightful big favorite here, but we'll see what happens. And I think in general, they're right where you'd want them to be. They'll really get tested here in a couple of weeks. They get Oklahoma State on the road. They'll get Arizona right after that. But maybe this is a test this weekend. I mean, it's a little taste of the Big 12. That's what we get, even though it has no bearing on the conference standings.
And the Big 12 is about to get a little taste of Utah, too. So it'll be fun, even though this is a non-conference game. All right, let's now move on. The other teams involved, including that game, Colorado, Zach Gelb just brought that up. They are in Lincoln. They beat Nebraska up last year. Even in that game, though, the Shedeur was sacked like 6, 7, 8 times, but they still won pretty easily. I watched them, and I'm unlike everybody else here. I watched them. I know that they have some flaws, but what's the guy? Is it Wester, one of the receivers? You have Horn, you have Hunter. They've got some dudes now. Now, again, can they protect Shedeur? That remains to be seen. But I don't even know if it matters, because how really a magician he might be when he has the ball in his hands.
Yeah, I think that's where we're going to see the conflicting styles in this game. Look, if I'm Matt Rule, I mean, this is a game plan that works out for me really well to keep it simple. Look, you have to limit their possessions. You can't just kind of keep giving them the ball back. That's what they did last year. They they kind of kept it tight early on, and then you throw in a couple of Jeff Sims fumbles here and there, and then, bad mistakes. And then a team that's already trying to get a ton of possessions has even more because you spotted them the ball. And so it got out of hand in the second half of that game, but they kept it close early enough to where you could see that the fundamental styles are conflicting enough to where if people, and I think a lot of probably people adopted this game plan against Colorado late when they could, was if you limit their possessions, you can keep this within the fairway, and I think that's what you're going to do. They're going to run the ball a lot. They're going to drain the clock. They're going to do their best.
Running game is okay,
but they play okay against this run defense is great against other run defenses.
Yeah, okay.
So they should be able to run the ball.
It has to be. It better be.
They have to run the ball. I'm not scared of the Colorado defense at all, especially when it comes to stopping the run. So if they commit to the run and then get them to cheat up a little bit, then maybe Raiola can make some plays. I think the physical versus non-physical nature of these teams will clash. Now, when you have Shedeur Sanders on the other side, that's what the X factor is of, all these super good skill players they have, and guys who are top 10 picks, so they can be the equalizer. But over a 60-minute game, that's what Matt Rule certainly needs to make this.
Yeah, I mean, I think Colorado looked pretty good in their opener. I know it was a struggle. I know there was some officiating that went their way. We didn't bog down on that like a lot of people did. But, there were some things to definitely, I guess, dock them a point or two here and therefore, but ultimately they got the win, man. Like everybody, I know overreacting is what we do, but I mean, ultimately they won that game and found a way to do so. And I think that gives you some confidence moving into this next one, but certainly the test is much different. And I think there's just a lot of interesting dynamics here from, Big 10 versus Big 12, Dion versus Rule, and by versus, I mean, just, coaching up a game and putting plans together and trying to outsmart the other one. I'm fascinated in the chess match there. And I think just, who plays better of the quarterbacks in that duel of the young Raiola and then the star in Shedeur Sanders, the true senior. I think that's going to be electric back and forth to see who emerges with the better game when all is said and done. And Shedeur will probably have way more opportunities based on just how the offense runs. But I'm fascinated to see Nebraska's defense and how they try to just force Colorado into playing their style of game and, trying to, make this, a tough game for Shedeur. I'm fascinated by that chess match, knowing how defensive minded Matt Rule is. That's the one angle I'm most excited about because Shedeur is such a great player. And look, he's going to make his plays, but yeah, this is a juicy one. If you're Colorado, this would be a huge, huge win. I think for Nebraska, it would be a huge win as well in the non-conference. So big game in Lincoln. It makes me a little bit more hesitant to roll with the Buffaloes. And even if it was in Boulder, based on what we saw last week, I think Nebraska is a more total package. I think Nebraska is better overall if you put all sides of the ball together. And I think that is, along with home field, going to give them an advantage to win this football game. But Shedeur, never count him out because he can make a play out of nowhere.
Yeah, he's so fun to watch. I mean, he is, and he's going to get time, he's going to make time, and that's when they become dangerous. I still am not sold on Nebraska's run game, even though they had a lot of yards against UTEP. It was UTEP that they have a dog that can go 50. There's not many that can, but someone that could pop one and take it 50. They are, by the way, played very well in his return after last year not playing much at UTEP. I mean, at UT.
Yeah, Isaiah Nair got in the end zone, and that was great to see. He went to Texas. I thought he would be great there, and he just never seemed like he was healthy, either that or a combination of just having too much talent in front of him, which at Texas, like right now, they're just rolling when it comes to wide receiver talent. So, he went for greener pastures, and I think that's worked out well for him in week number 1. But you're right, like Nebraska's run game versus that revamped Colorado defense will be very interesting. What can Colorado try to scrape together on the ground? And then again, if they can't do anything, does it really change much? Because that's basically been the case since Dion was there, they've never been able to really run the football all that effectively. So again, the chess match and what they try to force Shedeur into how they force him into trying to do what they want him to do. I'm very curious about that. And then, I think Raiola is going to have to make some plays with his arm. I don't think you're just going to run the football on Colorado. I think you can have some success doing that, but I think you are going to have to make some plays through the air, particularly if they aren't able to corral Travis Hunter and and Jimmy Horn and those guys, and it turns into a bit of a shootout. That could get really, really interesting. But yeah, I'm so ready to watch this game. I'm really, really intrigued, much more intrigued. Last year I was intrigued, but I'm much more intrigued this year. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that Nebraska has a competent quarterback, and they did not have that in this matchup last year.
I do know this. You hear about this defense, and it does. Last year they were one of the better ranked defenses in the country, but UTEP on like their second or third drive went like 3 plays and 75 yards. It made it look easy. So that I was like, my God, the Colorado should have a few of those opportunities too. Now, we go to the 2 schools in Arizona. Arizona State won big against Wyoming. Kenny Dillingham and company, they're now at home against Blake Shapen, Jeff Levy, SEC Mississippi State at Sun Devil Stadium on Saturday.
Yeah, I like this one is going to be really interesting because if Mississippi State and Arizona State are both improved, and I know Mississippi State fans were thrilled with the spread offense coming back and all that. In Starkville, this is a big game to me for the Big 12. To anytime you get a chance to beat an SEC opponent, even though this is not the top tier of either league right now, but it's a big moment for them. They're at home. They showed what they could do last week. They've got something to play for this year, so they've got some athletes on that squad. We know very little about how their current team is going to work constructed because it was so different last year than what they're going to be. And so far, so good. They beat a Wyoming team that usually is tough to beat in the opening games when they're playing against, and they're non-con. They're one of those teams that fight you to the death, but they did really well. So yeah, I'm interested to see how this one plays out too late at night. I think that Mississippi State probably has the edge, but we really don't know all that much about Arizona State.
Arizona State's favored last I looked, although it's by not much of a spread, and they are at home. But I think you could easily pick Mississippi State in this game and feel pretty great about your chances there. I do think, and Grayson brought this up on our podcast. I was already thinking of it anyways, though. But yeah, this is not Craig Bowles, Wyoming that they play.
No. You're right. Yeah.
So it's great they got the win, but this is not like the team that went and beat Texas Tech. That's not that same Wyoming team, but it's still a win. And you didn't really know what to expect if you're an Arizona State fan rolling in this year. So to win convincingly, to win running away, and not ever have to really sweat it. Not even the first. By the end of the first quarter, you already knew what the end of this game was going to look like. So that was great. That was really, really encouraging. They're going to be able to, run the football pretty effectively this year. Beyond that, I think Sam Levitt had a pretty nice game. Definitely has room for improvement. But as far as the first game out there, I think it was encouraging. I need to learn a lot more about Arizona State. And I think this will be obviously a great game to learn quite a bit about them, because even though it's not the class of the SEC, Jeff Levy and Blake Shapen had a really good first week, and that is a dynamic offense, and it's the offense that Shapen should have been playing in all along, and not what he was always playing in when he was at Baylor. And he appears to have a much better O-line because he wasn't getting his head knocked off every other play like when he was in Waco. So if you can give him protection, you remember the Big 12 championship game. Like, he can sling it around, and I think he's in a really good spot. So this is going to be a huge challenge for the Sun Devils defense. Are they up for the challenge? I think they will be, but you could tell me Mississippi State wins this game, and I'd be like, yep, I could totally see that. You tell me Arizona State wins this game, I could totally see that as well. I don't have a great feel either way after seeing them both play just one time, but this is an important game in terms of bragging rights, in terms of perception, and certainly for Kenny Dillingham, it's a huge game, because if they could start off 2-0 after the way things started, that would be a really big thing for his football program.
It'd be a heck of a thing, no question. Arizona with that Fafita McMillan combination. We knew their defense, though, obviously a little shaky in their game, but they're at home against Northern Arizona in week number 2. I think did they just name their score here too?
Yeah, I probably shouldn't have to play Fafita and McMillan all that much, but yeah, they should be able to name their score here. But what Teterow and McMillan did last week was ridiculous. It doesn't even matter like who you're playing in a game where you have, 304 yards receiving and 4 touchdowns. It's just unbelievable. And he showed, he's in competition to be that one of the top wide receivers taken in the 2025 draft. So yeah, they should be able to name their score here. I don't know how much deeper you can go into this, but yeah, their defense has to play better than they did against New Mexico for sure.
The defense was really rocky for good stretches of that game. I think it got better as the game went along. Towards the end, you got a feeling of like maybe this is just one of those first game jitters, first game adjustments type thing, and it's not as bad as it appears. That's what you're hoping, at least if you're Arizona. You're hoping that that's not what you're going to be seeing week in and week out. But, I mean, I said all offseason I didn't think they were just going to not skip a beat on defense. I mean, y'all remember that. I was talking about Johnny Nansen leaving, and I know they said, well, the transfers that left are young guys that didn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. It's like, yeah, but that's still depth that you had that was designed to play in that defense that's now suddenly not there. And they didn't lose, like, large numbers, but you still lost freaking Johnny Nansen. Like, losing coaches matters, especially if they were really successful. So them having a hiccup in the first game was not surprising, but is it going to be a longer-lasting thing? I don't know that we know that yet, and we're not going to know that after this weekend. This is a name your score game. We'll see Arizona get challenged much greater in the next few weeks. But I think this is one of those where Fafita and McMillan probably play the quarter and a half, first half, something like that. I don't think you're going to see them real late. Throwing TDs like we saw last weekend. Although that was awesome last weekend, and they needed every bit of that to win that game. They're a lot of fun. They're going to be a lot of fun. I think they're right there in the pack of contenders, but this week's not going to tell us much of anything. They just got to stay healthy and get out of this one.
All right, so we have gone down the list from the various pods, and we still have tomorrow, Thursday, we'll have the 4 schools that have been a part of the Big 12 for quite some time. Not TCU, they weren't an original, but you know what I mean, with also Texas Tech, Oklahoma State, and Baylor. When we come back, Paul Catalina. By the way, we haven't said anything about the helmet since we came on again. What a great gift for us. The 365 Sports love the colors of that helmet. And Paul, Green Gridiron, again, the company that makes these helmets if you want to go online and get one.
The link is in the description too. So if you go on and you can get a custom helmet, or you can see what they have for your favorite team. It's Emory put it on, took it for a test drive as well. So
is it heavy as heck?
It
feels like the real deal.
But you got like the bumper there.
Yeah. Back. Just a fantastic
I don't know if
helmet.
people can see on the visor that it's got like the stars and stripes there.
Okay,
Yeah,
here we go.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. And thank you very much to Green Gridiron for the incredible gift. And that is beautiful. Well done. Very, very well done. All right, when we come back, Paul Catalina and his top 5. Coming up at the end of September, a level 6 tennis tournament, men's and women's singles and doubles tournament at Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness. And this will be, by the way, a level 6 tournament. So this is a big deal. Adult men's and women's singles and doubles. You can still register for that if you want by contacting the adult tennis pro, Blake. You can get him, B. Starkey, Starkey, at asag.net. That's at September 28th and also September the 29th throughout that weekend. Also, fall adult tennis classes available in clinics. Mondays, advanced beginners. This is in the evening at 6 o'clock. Stroke of the week clinic at Tuesdays. Wednesdays, games and drills, middle to advanced. And Thursdays, double strategy and clinic, middle to advanced. And Saturday, open games start at 9:30. You also can get group exercise classes, personal training, unbelievable equipment to stay in shape or get in shape. Stay fit. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lake Shore Drive in Waco.
Fantasy Sports EVO, the next evolution of daily fantasy sports. Tired of traditional fantasy sports where you spend hours upon hours studying individual players? EVO's unique team-based platform makes it easier than ever for all sports fans to play. No need to know individual players. Just choose your contest, select your teams, and enjoy the game. Whether you access our website from a desktop, mobile device, or the app, the experience is the same. EVO is for all sports fans. Join Fantasy Sports EVO and experience the evolution.
Paul Catalina's Top 5, brought to you by Texas Beef House. Where's the best beef in Texas? Your house when you order from Texas Beef House. Unleash the flavor of Texas-raised Wagyu. From our pasture to your plate, TexasBeefHouse.com.
Welcome into Paul Catalina's Top 5 here on 365 Sports, of course, presented by Texas Beef House. I am waiting patiently for my arrival notification for Jack and I's Wagyu hamburger meat that we bought last week, and I have already got plans for my 5 pounds. Jack has 5 pounds, so I don't know what he's going to do with his. I don't ask him what he does in his social life. I don't want to know, but I'm excited. I've got several recipes planned out for mine, and go to bitonbeef.com or texasbeefhouse.com. Promo code 365sports when you make a purchase there, and there's always some sort of special. Usually it's $25 off of your order when you win that auction at bitonbeef.com. This particular topic, teams on upset alert here in week 2. This is the first challenging week for a lot of teams. Some people like to schedule cupcakes early on, and that's fine. Some people like to go to friggin' Ireland. I don't know. But let's talk about Clemson and App State. Look, I think Clemson's going to win the game. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to dog on Clemson here, but they got rolled last week. And the last team that you want to see after you got rolled is the Sun Belt superstars here in App State. They revel in this. They love kicking you when you're down. When you're not completely sure of yourselves, that's when App State comes around and be like, you shouldn't be sure of yourself. You're a terrible, dirty little piglet, and I hate you. And then you're like, I hate myself too, and you lose. That's what App State does to you. They make you not believe in yourself even more. I don't know how they do it through multiple coaches and all this, but they have just a joie de vivre about them where if you are down on your luck and they're coming in, they're going to make life hard for you. North Carolina got out with their lives a year ago against App State, and I would not be surprised if Clemson also, even though they win, at the end of it, they're like, like I was the other night, please give me 2 shots of whiskey and 2 gummies and leave me the F alone. Well, maybe, I don't know if that's Dabo, but you get it. Like, maybe he reads a whole second Bible verse after the game. I don't know what he's going to have to do. But I do think there's potential for this one to be challenging and hard. Number 4, Georgia Tech. They play Syracuse. Syracuse, who got Kyle McHargue, a guy I still don't understand why there wasn't a bigger market for, having 1 loss and only to Michigan. I'll never get it. I will never get why Kyle McHargue walked out into the desert, but he fit in well in that offense last week. He threw for a ton of yards. Fran Brown is creative, innovative, like all these things that are going to go on at Syracuse. I'm excited to see what's going to happen for the Orange here in the coming years. If Fran Brown is as successful as he appears he'll be as a head coach, it's going to be fun to watch in Syracuse for the first time in a long time. And Georgia Tech obviously started off the season with a huge win in Ireland over FSU, but this is a team that could get into a shootout with them. And maybe we'll see a little bit more of Haynes King passing this week to keep up in what could be a shootout. But I still think Georgia Tech's moxie and experience wins this out. But Kyle McHargue on the other side has played in a lot bigger games than Haynes King has, so he's not going to be afraid. As a matter of fact, most of the ACC will be turned down for him from being at Ohio State. I mean, Syracuse should be easy for Kyle McHargue emotionally. There's nothing like that pressure cooker. Hell, he had to transfer because he lost a game to Michigan. A game. I'm not taking crazy pills, am I? Like, he only lost 1 game.
Just 1 game?
I don't get it. Number 3, Oregon against Boise State. Look, they already got a charge put in by Idaho, and Idaho doesn't have Ashton Jeanty. So I don't need to talk about some of the other really great players that Boise State has. Ashton Jeanty. Whoa. All right. So now the bad news for Boise State is that Oregon already got scared. So now maybe they're a little bit more refocused. But Ashton Jeanty should be a Heisman candidate if he keeps it up at the end of the year. Ashton Jeanty. I've said it a lot. His name should be on all your lips because he's one of the best players in the country. And loyal, didn't leave. And believe me, I'm sure he got some calls. tons of calls. How many teams are there? I would say about a third of them. Like, just
blowing them up.
Shot a little text like, "What's up, Ashton? Have you ever been to a place that's not Boise?" Everybody has potatoes. You can come here and try shrimp. Yeah, he is loyal. We like Ashton Genty on this program. Number 2, Oklahoma State against Arkansas. SEC Big 12 matchup. Of course, this one is in the Boone. Is that what they call it?
They might call it
T-Boone
the Boone.
Pickens Stadium.
They should. I like that.
In the pick. I would call it the Boone. But at T-Boone Pickens Stadium there in Stillwater. Again, I think Oklahoma State's going to win the game, but Arkansas is a bit of a wild card, seeing is that their coach is painted into a corner. He's got a pretty exciting athletic quarterback in Taylon Green, transfer from Boise State, by the way. We're talking about them quite a bit here in the last few minutes, but they're going to have to keep pace with him, keep him contained. I think Ollie Gordon obviously is going to be the factor in this game. Not sure Arkansas's defense can stop him, but believe me, they'll be taking this seriously, more so than maybe any other year, because Sam Pittman's in trouble. He is sitting on one of the hotter seats in college football. And as a matter of fact, if Billy Napier wasn't a thing, Sam Pittman's seat might be the hottest. But since Billy Napier's a thing, he can be like, well, at least it's not that bad over there. And number 1, a game I said earlier on Triple Option that not enough people are paying attention to is Tennessee and NC State. Look, Dave Doran got this game in Charlotte, neutral site technically, but a home game for the Wolfpack. Tennessee's really good. Nico Amaliava, really good. But I like Dave Doran as a coach in these kind of games where people have forgotten about him. People are going to keep talking about Nico Amaliava. He's going to have that chip on his shoulder, and he's pulled off some big ones in the past. And so I wouldn't be surprised to see this one be very, very exciting and very, very good. And Tennessee needs to be on upset alert. No one's really talking about it because we've got Texas and Michigan, we've got Colorado, Nebraska, we've got some other games, but this is a ranked ACC team versus a ranked SEC team. So let's give it its due and pay attention to this one a little bit. Pretty interesting game between those two conferences. Obviously, Tennessee's going to be the favorite, but watch out for the Wolfpack. They will sneak up and bite you. They will sneak up and bite you. That's going to do it for the top 5. We're wrapping it up right now.
All right, Paul, thank you very much. Brought to you by TexasBeefHouse.com. Their logo right there on the screen. And again, they have a live auction 3 times in September, including next Wednesday and also next Thursday. NFL season starts tomorrow, so we'll have a little bit with that tomorrow night with a couple of games and then the full weekend. I love the way you go from letting college have a couple of weekends and then the monstrosity of the NFL starts to take over, but the way it meshes in where the college football had all of the spotlight for a couple of weeks, and they still will, but not Thursday and surely not Sunday or Monday.
But by the way, a little bit of breaking news for the Florida Gators, and this isn't too much of a surprise considering that Graham Mertz was in the concussion protocol last week, but DJ Lagway is going to get the start against Samford this week, and we'll see if Graham Mertz ever gets his job back.
I don't think any of us were all that stoked about Graham Mertz at Florida to begin with. I know you especially highlighted a lot of that, but I think this probably just fast forwards us to where we're going to end up anyways, just in a quicker fashion. I think with the way the season started off, barring them going on some magical run of wins under Graham Mertz, you're going to have to do something. You're going to have to feed the Gators, so to speak, and I think that's with the young quarterback to try and inspire some hope. So you're probably doing that earlier than you wanted to, obviously, but for Florida fans, you're probably stoked. Slightly nervous of like he's young, we're throwing him to the wolves, but also this sure as hell beats whatever we watched last week. So hopefully he's the savior, and we'll see. He's a super talent, very highly rated guy. And I don't mean like the DJU way, like no, but no, for real though, he's got a lot of great talents and characteristics about him that made him a really high profile guy. And so now he's getting his opportunity, and I'm now more interested in that Florida game as a result of that. I'll tell you that much.
No, that's a great point. I thought that who was it yesterday? No, RJ Young on Tuesday from Fox Sports when he was talking about the transfer portal. And here's DJ Lagway watching what Miami did to his school, Now, Lagway hopes that he's going to be Cam Ward or someone like that. And if that falls apart, he just saw a team right in front of his eyes that's just down the road. And who knows, you always hear about the fact maybe you get back closer to home, which, of course, is in the state of Texas.
If he goes in the transfer portal, it will be much like, any of the other guys, but it'll be an absolute feeding frenzy from everybody all around there.
Let's let him play a game and let's see how the season finishes.
That first of all is the main thing, but then also, for all we know, he could be a Quinn Ewers who's already mapped all this out anyways, already has his next move planned. So maybe A&M is like where he'd end up, but let's see what he does in Gainesville first. Maybe he finds out he's the best player they have and he's the starting quarterback and he takes them on a run. Probably not, but I'm looking forward to seeing it. And I'd definitely rather watch him at this point than Graham Mertz. So
I agree. And by the way, it's like an NFL team. Once they lose traction or they go 2-6 or whatever, and you have a pretty good rookie quarterback, why not, right? Without trying to get them hurt. I got a question for you to wrap up. 7 college teams, programs, 7 have 2 or 3 quarterbacks starting this week in the NFL. Can you name any of those 7? Oklahoma has the only program that has 3.
Georgia.
No,
I guess it wouldn't. Okay.
I'm trying to think. Alabama.
Yes, they have 2. Tua and Bryce Young.
Yep.
5 left.
Ohio State only has 1 because CJ Stroud, because Justin Fields isn't starting.
There's one team I never would have gotten. All right, you ready?
Yeah.
Oregon. Bo Nix, remember now is a part of that mix.
I got to remember Bo Nix. Yeah.
Clemson with Deshaun Watson and also Trevor Lawrence. Cal. Aaron Rodgers. Now I don't know who the other
Jared
one.
Goff.
Jared Goff. Okay. And then USC with 2. LSU with 2. So those are the 7 schools: Oklahoma, Oregon, Clemson, Cal, Alabama, USC, and LSU that have 2 starting quarterbacks. Oklahoma has 3 as we open up the NFL week coming up tomorrow night. All right. Thank you, Craig Smoak, Paul Catalina. Emery Winter has already basically all but just told me who we're going to have tonight with our 4 segments on 365 Sports tonight. That's the way he rolls. And we just say yes. Garrett Ross, thank you very much. Jack McKenzie, of course, doing what he does tomorrow. Triple option at 1. Tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock on 365 Sports in our umbrella, my high school statewide podcast. It will be 10 o'clock tomorrow. And then, of course, thank you tonight. I'm David Smoak for Paul, Craig, everybody I mentioned, and our sponsors and you, the audience. Good night, 365 Sports.